Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe. Entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
We're live. My word, look, I've been dragged through a hedge backwards. Technical problems again. What goes on? This is the thing when you start getting cocky. Look, all these lovely microphones, and look what I'm going to use, a set of headphones. Lovely of you guys to join us. Right, let's get this show on the road. Where are we? Let's get the comments up. So if you're here, let me know in the comments, and we can give you a shout out. Right, I've got some notes today because remember April 1st. We had like 16 speakers back to back, and it was 9 hours, and I was just shattered. So I'm prepared today. I'm not winging it. I've got some notes, and let's have a look. See, hi Katie, lovely to see you. Yes, I'm looking forward to it as well. Mine have been rushing around. You can see the speeds of sweating is right back to business. That's what we're going to call this. Can you hear me anyway? By the way, let me know if this sounds okay, because I'm just using a little pair of headphones. My name's Ian Farah. I'm the founder of Far North and Carpaway, a speaker, and of course the host of the Industry Angel Podcast, where we interview inspirational leaders and people every week. And man, have we got some inspirational people for you today. I've got some shout outs here. I must thank Paul Chute from Boomerang Healthcare for sponsoring the last two conferences as well. That was a godsend because obviously with the pandemic, everything was up in the air, tech and everything, and Paul pulled me out. As I said, this is the third conference. I did the first one, and then I thought, that's it, done. And then you might remember Jeff Ram called me out and said, no, you've got to do another one, which I did on the 15th. And then after the 15th, I got itchy feet because people were commenting saying I really loved it. Speakers were approaching me saying I'd like to get involved. So I thought, let's do it again. So this will be about 40 interviews I've done since the pandemic hit. I've started another company. I took on a new member of staff. So I wasn't going to wait around. I know, obviously, we've had a bit of downtime, a bit of thinking space. So I'd love to understand what you've all started or what you've done on lockdown or since the pandemic. Have you started yoga? Have you spent more time at home? Have you started another business? Wrote a book? Whatever you've done, let me know in the comments. I'll be really inspired by you all. What else have we got? Boomerang Geordie, my name's Grant. Yes, I know your name's Grant. Look at that. There's a beautiful chap that was on the front of the Northeast Times last month. Look at that. Hi, Alex. Lovely to see you. Dave, good morning, sir. Sean, good morning from what seems to be constantly cloudy. It's been really foggy, hasn't it, Sean? Really foggy. Nice scar piano laminate. Yeah. Still got my lanyard on. I can't even probably take this off because I'll probably pull my headphones off. Thank you. I thought it was quite Vans-esque, but thanks so much. What else have we got then? So, if you here for the first time, thanks so much for joining us. As I say, we do this, or do the podcast weekly, so you can subscribe through iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you listen. If you're on YouTube, thanks for joining us. You can subscribe or hit the bell, and when we go live again, you'll get notifications. What I'd love you to do, though, if you could click share and share this out, because we're doing this to make a difference. There's no charge for this. Although, if you want to give me a donation, check this out. No, cap in hand, you might want to go to industryangel.com. But no, we're going to do this for free for people, no charge. Our guests are doing this off out of their goodwill as well. So please share it, because there's going to be some inspirational speakers that could really help people. You know, this is tough times. So let's have a look who we've got then. We've got my friend Adrienne Gibson. She's going to be looking at transforming with heart. Now, if you've been listening to me over this last year or so, you know I've been hugging way too many trees lately. So my friend Adrian and I will be hugging some beautiful big oaks for you this morning. And then at 10:45, you've got John Devitt talking about business continuity. John's business has been very busy during this pandemic. Then we've got our Gillian Fortune, talking about how to feel in control. Gillian's going to give us a couple of techniques to take away, to implement in our lives, to feel in control. Because I do not feel in control right now. So I'll leave that. Then we've got our my friend Ray Spencer, MBE, the CEO of the Customs House here in South Shields. Then we've got the wonderful Holly Brennan and her friend John Mew talking about mental fitness. Holly's been working with John. John's a Falcons veteran and suffers with PTSD. Holly's been helping John with her adventurous coaching, and they've got a lovely story to tell us. Well, there you go. Let's have a look who else is in before we bring our Adrienne in. Sorry, I'm late. Kate, I was late, so don't worry about it. I won't say anything, but you don't. What's Natalie doing? She's taking more time for herself, walking, colouring in, rowing. Natalie, I saw your rowing content on Twitter yesterday. I was Facebook. You're looking amazing in that boat. Well done, sister. Morning, Lindsay. Lindsay's from South Tyneside, Invest South Tyneside team. And yes, the content suite is looking good. This is where we are right now. We're in South Shields in 1 Trinity Green. And just before the pandemic hit, we were going to do some coaching and help people start their own vlogs, blogs, live streams, podcasts with all this wonderful equipment that Ian hasn't got working right now. And we're going to do some coaching on that. So this space, you can use it if you're local to us. Who else have we got? Yes, fashionably delayed, I know. But look at the state of me, Grant. Who else have we got? Darren, morning. I'll be dipping in and out of appointments. Well, that's fine, Darren. You can dip in and out, my friend. These videos will be there on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, going forward, so you can always revisit them. As I say, if you could share it out, that would be great to try and impact as many people as we can during this tough time. There's my friend MK. She is an absolute formal rock star. Wanders around conferences, tweeting about 1 million times an hour with a phone, taking videos and selfies. MK is fantastic. Lovely to have you here, making. Okay, what else we got? So again, we're across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter on Periscope. So we've got a lot of people still coming in, which is great. As I say, it'd be great if you could share it out and push it to all your friends. That would be great. If anything like Grant, he's probably got 4,000 friends on Facebook. He's an absolute rock star. Look at that picture. Let me know what else you've been doing during this tough time. As I say, if you've started any hobbies, if you've wrote anything, if you began, an old pastime you've revisited. So, for instance, if you're meditating, there's quite a lot of people start doing some meditation. Let me know. Hi, Sarah. Lovely of you to join us this morning. Good to see you. If you've revisited any old loves, that would be great. Not old loves as in old loves. Obviously, that would be weird. Although it could be, hey, each their own, whatever, Right then, shall we bring our Adrienne in? Because I can see her in the green room, my Southern Belle friend, looking magnificent here. Let's bring her in. Come on, let's bring her. Actually, I'm going to introduce her first, and then we'll pop her in. Okay. So, hi, Laura. Love you. So you be dipping in out as well. Good lass. Well done. Okay. Adrienne specializes in transformational change around the world, focusing on the heart of business, the people. Through international conference speaking, consultant coaching, and workshops, she enables individuals and companies to focus on the heart of who they are and what matters the most. Welcome to the industry angel, Adrienne Gibson.
Thanks so much, Ian.
Now, I can't hear you, pet.
What?
Oh, yeah, I've got you.
Okay.
Listen, don't give me a heart attack like that.
Don't give me a heart attack.
Seriously. We're trying to get cocky and we're trying to do this with all these lovely bits of tech, but sometimes maybe going a little bit old school might just work as good.
My headphones are here just in case after I heard what you said.
Good stuff. I did lose you a little bit there, so hopefully that won't happen across the interview. Right, I've got some true or false questions for you to start with. Is that okay?
Of course.
I think you should. Oh yeah, you've got a little bit of a delay
Okay.
on your sound. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I try my old school headphones as well?
Go on, you put your old school headphones in and see what it does, and I'll say good morning to my mate Peter there. He's going to be dodging in and out as well. That is amazing. Let's have it again.
Okay, here we are.
There you go. That's brilliant. Oh, look,
old school all the time, right?
Gillian's learned to play Pack Up Your Troubles on the mouth organ. Oh my word, I love that. Now, if my tech was working, I could have brought you in, Gillian, on the phone and got you in here, and you could have played that for us. So maybe next time. Right, true or false? Okay, Alabama girls. Okay, they take forever to get ready.
Well, it depends.
True or false, Adrienne? Stop it.
True.
True. There you go.
True.
You've got road rage.
Say that again.
You have road rage.
True.
You like being outside.
True.
True. You've been drinking hard liquor from being 15 years old.
No, my mom could be watching. False.
You expect manners.
Yes, true.
Yes.
Very true.
Yeah, and you respond to texts right away, and you insist that everyone else does.
Sometimes. That's sometimes true, sometimes false. It depends on who it is.
And at the annual PSA conference, you've been you don't go to bed till about 3 a.m.
True.
True. Yeah. I can attest that. Well, it's lovely to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Because you're not in Alabama anymore. You're over this side of the pond. You're ours now. You're in London, yeah?
I'm officially a British girl. I've converted.
Have you? Have you got a passport and all that?
I do. I've had it for years, four or 5 years now. Yeah.
Have you? Wow.
Yeah.
So you're out. There you go. You're ours. What have you been doing? How's things been for you then down in London? Because I remember we spoke the other day and you showed me the view outside of your apartment and it's on the Thames. And so how's things been going there?
Yeah, well, like any place, it's been interesting, right? Because I've experienced my flat more in the last 3 months than I have in the 2.5 years I've lived here. Because I'm normally traveling quite a bit, etc. So literally, I think in the last 3 months, I've spent more time in my flat than I have the last 2.5 years. And at first, it was very quiet. But now, because I live over a park, as you mentioned, it's quite rowdy in the evening. So it's getting a bit more lively as lockdown starts to unwind a bit and the pubs aren't yet open. So I'm keen for the pubs to be open so that all the teenage and college age kids can go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think there's a few of us keen for the pubs to be open, but for very different reasons. So look at you, anglicized with your flat rather than your apartment.
Well, you know, I've been here 11 years, Ian. I've had to get some lingo, of course.
But that beautiful
but I do still say y'all as well. I may
y'all,
say
I know
that,
you do.
I say y'all.
I know you do, and I love it. Right, what we got here then. So I'm totally prepared today. Totally prepared. You were going to give us, look at this clip of me, my word. You were going to give us, what a morning. You were going to give us 3 commandments, rules, tips. What? Tell me, you tell me, you take the floor.
So I think for me, the experience that we've been all going through around the world with COVID and lockdowns in various forms, etc. We've experienced a lot of unprecedented stuff during this time. But the one thing that I see as a silver lining is that I think it's really humanized business. Whether businesses, had put people at the heart and focused on them with kindness and compassion before or not, now we're kind of forced to humanize business a bit more because people are working from their homes and we're getting to see people in their real environments. Some of my favorite things are where you'll be hosting global meetings and you've got this senior manager in Germany and his 11-year-old daughter's coming up behind him going, things like this, right? And that's brilliant because you actually get to see people in their real environment versus the suit that they put on to show up for work. And my view is that I think for a lot of people, folks don't want to go back to the old way. And I'm not going to use the phrase return to normal, because I don't think that was normal. I think it's time for us to transform and show up in a different way in work and more with heart. So the work that I do is a lot of times working with businesses on how they can transform the heart of their business. But also today, I want to talk about how we as individuals can transform the way that we show up in work. A lot of the conversations I'm having with people now are about they don't want to go back to the old way. So even myself included, I was on the road more than I was off. And that doesn't appeal to me. Now, I will always love traveling and exploring the world because that's a huge passion for me, but I don't want to be flying around all the time. The fact that we can do work remotely so effectively now, I think it's changed the way that people think about their commutes and how much time they spend away from home. And are we really investing our time where it matters most for us? So I do think that workplaces are going to change and should change to create more of a balance. And people use the expression work-life balance all the time. My view is there is no such thing as work-life balance. You have a life. And part of what you do with that life is earning a living. And it needs to be a part of your life, not consuming your life to the point that you don't actually get to enjoy yourself. So how are we going to reset and create a new norm in the way that we show up in business and how businesses are going to operate so that we can take advantage of what's really worked well from this experience and bring that into creating a new way of being in work?
I think we're all guilty of that, Adrienne, that getting on this hamster wheel that we always talk about and just really scurrying around, and actually it becomes quite habitual before you know it, that you don't leave work till 6 or 7. That just becomes a thing, and then maybe your partner and your children get used to that as well. Mom or dad doesn't come home till that time, and why? What we done that ourselves for? So you've heard the term reset quite a lot in this pandemic, but it has, isn't it? It has really does.
And also one of the learnings for me has been, I'm one of those people that when I get on something, I'm on, and it's 12, 14, 16 hour days easily for me when I'm working. And for me, it's been actually stopping and going outside and enjoying myself and just having that downtime, because I can be too much the other end sometimes. So I think it's been a nice reset for us to think about the way that we show up for work. And for people who might now be reemerging, getting back more involved in work and be thinking about going back into the office, one of the things I'd say is don't be afraid to ask to do things differently. A lot of companies I'm talking to now also are recognizing that they can work effectively remotely. They can do things differently. And there's a cost saving to doing that for the business as well. So for people who are returning to work and trying to find, don't just accept the fact that you have to go back to the way that it was before. Find a new norm that works better for you and the business. And don't be afraid to ask for it.
It's interesting. I've quite got used to and quite enjoying this kind of thing. And what I've saw with clients is that they're actually embracing themselves, and they're just saying, let's go remote now. And they're actually saying, let's go remote in October. Whereas, maybe in October might be better. Maybe you and I speak. Maybe conferences might be back on. I don't know, socially distanced, of course. But people aren't prepared to wait now. They're actually saying, no, let's do this. It works fine. It's great. And I think the level of expectation has adjusted to the norm. For instance, if we were speaking to Adrian or training or delivering some consulting, if you're quite conscientious, you want to deliver 110%, don't you? You want those people to walk out of the room buzzing. I think doing this remote stuff, we've kind of got a little bit of slack. I mean, look at me this morning running around with tech and stuff. People are just like, it's fine, we get it. And it actually makes us, we've kind of calmed down a little bit. We don't have to be 100% perfect. We're human.
Yeah, I agree. And that's part of what I mean about humanizing business, that so often people show up for work trying to portray a particular image. And now it's kind of masks coming off and let's see what's happening. And the fact that I'm, Zooming or Microsoft Teaming with some guy in Poland who, bless him, has this fake background. I'm like, so what's up with your background? And he takes it off and it's his kid's bedroom. And I'm like, dude, the toy's in the background. That's really cool, right? Or I had a business call with someone yesterday, a vendor that I'm going to be working with. And I said, do I see kid drawings on your wall, right? Where he's trying to have this professional appearance in this little screen right within his kid's drawing. Like, let me see your kid's drawings, because that's what I mean about humanizing business. And I don't want us to lose that. So when we find whatever this new norm is, how can we incorporate, a little bit of what used to be with a little bit of what we've had recently to find a new way that serves a better purpose? Because the reality is we are just people. And the more we can show up as our authentic selves day in and day out, the more we are going to enjoy it, the more businesses are going to get from us, right? So how can we do that more and not feel like we have to put that old mask on and get back on the hamster wheel, because that doesn't serve anyone. Yeah.
So Adrienne, how can you get us across if leaders, for instance, don't understand that? But we as employees, we as team, want that. Well, what do you do? Can you speak to leaders and get them across this transformative?
Yes, I'm going to personally advocate and arm wrestle every leader myself to make them think this way. That's how it works. I do have reasonably good influencing skills with my coaching and consulting, but
I know you do.
I do think it is about. I call it the what's working, what's not working conversation. A lot of times it really is that simple in business. Either if you're a manager talking to an employee, or if you're an employee talking to your manager, let's just put it on the table. What's working and not working? It doesn't have to be confrontation and difficult. It can be just about, this is working well for me, and these are some areas that aren't working out so well. And that conversation works for everything: feedback, performance, working conditions. It doesn't matter. Team dynamics. I encourage people to do that all the time. So have that. Say, you know what? Yeah, we're going back to work, but let's talk about what worked for me in the old way and what didn't, and how we can work some compromise of something in the middle. And it is too, when we're talking to managers, if they have a completely different view from what we have, how can we find common ground and meet in the middle, trial some things, try to get someone to do something on a temporary basis to see if it works. Let us experiment. Let's try something out. If it works, great. And if it doesn't, okay, then we'll come back to more towards your side of how you want things to work. But try to see if you can at least get a temporary window to pilot it, try it out, see what works.
So in terms of when people do go back to work, so I think there's still a lot of people working from home. In our business centre here, it's not full to capacity by any means. There's a lot of people still working from home. When people do get back to business, things have changed, Adrienne.
Yes.
We personally might have changed. Our mindset might have changed. We might have understand
Exactly.
what's important in life and all that kind of good stuff. But actually, the workplace is going to be changed. The business will change. Cash flow. We're going to be losing team members, unfortunately, losing clients. How can we deal with that?
Yeah, and that's key. I mean, I do think there's going to be a lot of transformation in business. The way that we work, whether it's virtual or in person, there is going to be some change in some businesses where they're going to have to sell off, divest, transform, restructure. It means that some people may lose jobs as well. And for me, those kind of decisions are always difficult decisions that have to be made in business. That's the reality of running a business. But doing it with heart, treating people with compassion and kindness, treating people in a humane way, and also for us recognizing that, life is about change. And if something happens where it may be that we lose an opportunity, a business has to change. It's about trying to seek opportunities to do things a bit differently and get outside the box in the way that we think about work and the way that we approach it, and keep exploring other options for ways that we can earn money for ourselves that might not be so traditional. Because there's more opportunity out there than I think people realize sometimes, because we stay trapped in a little, this is the way work works. But it doesn't have to. We can be creative and create something new and different and better for ourselves.
So when you talk about that, Adrienne, are you talking about people can create their own revenue stream outside of work? Yeah.
Come on, you and I have done that, right? I came out of corporate environments for 20 years and
Yeah.
I do my own thing, right? Which is why I show up as the 4 things you mentioned when you did the introduction. It's finding what works for you. And I create a business that supports the lifestyle I want. And there's a lot more opportunity for people to do that nowadays than I think many people realize. Of course, it takes being a bit open to taking risks and putting yourself out there. But the more risk you can take and be comfortable with to do something a bit different, the more reward that comes along with it.
I love that. And if anybody's watching, if you've started something, a little side hustle or a little project, making something, selling stuff on eBay or Depop or any of these channels, let us know if you're really interested to see, because I think what we said at the start, we did this on April Fool's Day, and what we said was, let's not look back. And Jeff Ram really posed this question: what are you going to do with this time? Because we knew we'd be here for a long time. So are you going to get all the way to the end and not have achieved anything?
Yeah.
So I'd love to understand if anyone has done that. What about you personally, Adrienne? What have you done?
Well, I've written an ebook as well, and produced some content that I'm looking to be kind of phase 1 of the ebook was leading through the heart of a storm. And then the next phase is how do we transforming with heart? That's the next piece of it, is that how do we get through the crisis, the heavier parts of the crisis, and then how do we transform with heart? So that's some stuff that I'm working on at the moment and doing a lot of consulting with businesses on that as well.
So is there any particular techniques that you have, or was it more so just the consultant and the listening and the talking and sharing wisdom, or is there some real killer kind of content?
No, the thing for me is recognizing that businesses are made up of individual human beings that all have hopes and dreams and fears and aspirations. And each one of us is wired differently, whether we think about our mental wiring and, the way that we process and receive information, or our emotions or our personality types or whatever. And recognizing that every person is unique and trying to communicate in a way that really resonates across the board. And to make decisions, obviously we have to make some tough decisions in times like this. It's inevitable. But how we execute against those can be done with heart and compassion and kindness for people. Because I'm a big believer that storms come and go, crises come and go, but the way that you lead through them is the legacy that remains long beyond any crisis or storm or change program. So how do we create the legacy that we want with people by the way that we're choosing to show up and leading our businesses? That's really, to me, part of the core.
Can you change somebody, Adrienne? I'm smiling away as I say this. We've seen some of these hard-faced leaders in the past. And a few will spring to people's minds, like Steve Jobs and stuff. Great entrepreneurs. But these guys were tough and not nice to work for, actually. Do you see in your world these people, and can you soften them up? Can you bring, as Helena says there, the labradoodle around and get them to soften up, or are there always these tough people?
Yeah, I thought you saw my superwoman cape and knew my capabilities, of course, right? I just waved my magic wand. In all seriousness, of course I do. And I worked in some industries where we had quite an abundance of guys like that, given my corporate background. The answer is yes and no. People change themselves. And people only change when they are willing to change. And sometimes it takes really difficult situations happening to people to get them to open up to change. So even though I do executive coaching, I can coach people to the point that they're willing to go, not beyond that, right? And one of the things I'm seeing is circumstances like this open people's eyes and create a bit more willingness to see things from a different perspective. Or I've seen leaders like what you've described that are really hard and difficult, and they feel that sense of power and they wield it all over the place. And then suddenly the power structure that was supporting them is gone, and they're suddenly a bit more vulnerable and nobody's engaging with them anymore. And they're in a vulnerable, humble position, and they start looking at things a little bit differently. Sometimes, sadly, it takes difficult circumstances to get people to open up and see things differently. But once they do, helping support them on that journey, anybody can change. It's about whether or not they're willing to.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, Sean brings a good point up here that every person has their own motivation, and it's up to us as leaders to tap into that. So
Right.
how do you do it? How do you do that? Is that through a series of one-to-ones and sit downs and yeah.
Yeah, so my background is I spent 20 years as an HR executive, right? And so I've been talking about talent and developing people for a really long time. I'm a huge believer. It's not my job as a leader to tell someone how they need to be developed, because I'm all knowing and I know what your career path needs to be. It's about having a conversation with every person to understand them, what makes them tick from a motivational standpoint, and their own personal aspirations. Because just because I think you have a particular career path that I think is right for you, it's not about that. It's what do you want? What works for you? So having conversations about aspiration and about motivation, understanding each person in the team, that's what helps a leader to really move the needle, because when they understand their people, they can relate to them more on a one-on-one level, even if it's in a broader setting. So that's the big thing that I try to talk about, is get to the heart of your business, understand your people to the degree you can. I mean, some businesses I work with, I mean, one of them was 350,000 people. Okay, it might be a little bit hard to understand each person at an individual level, but manager by manager, of course they can.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a big fan of getting people in their comfort zone in terms of what they enjoy to do.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I interviewed a young lady yesterday, and I was like, I don't want you to do all these things that you don't like doing. What's your passion? What do you enjoy doing? And that's what we get you into. And should that change in a couple of years' time, then we'll move you into that. There's nothing worse when I was a boy and sitting down and someone saying, right, okay, can you go and do it over there? And I'm like, oh my word, and, not enjoy it. You've got to put us in the right pigeonholes, if you know what I mean.
I agree. I'm a big believer in playing to our passions and our strengths.
You put it much better than I did.
You've seen those quotes that don't teach a fish to climb a tree, right? Every one of us has particular strengths and passions, and how do we help amp that up? It's not about perfecting all the little things that we don't enjoy and aren't good at. It's how do we put people in situations to play to their strengths and set them up for success? So what is it that we're really passionate about and really good at? Do that. That's what you do for a living. Sure. I mean, like us, Ian, we run businesses. It means that even though I love engaging with people, that's my secret power, right? Engaging and connecting with people. But the reality is, I run a business. I've got to do the accounting every month.
Yeah.
I don't like it. But I have to show up and do that because that's part of it. But I want to spend more of my time doing this kind of stuff, connecting with people. So I pay an accountant to do the heavy lifting. I do a little bit so that I don't have to spend so much of my time doing that, because I don't want to invest my time and energy there. It sucks the life out of me to a degree. How do we play to our passions and our strengths? And in businesses, how do leaders get to know their people well enough that they know those things and bring that out in the team? When they're allowing every person to show up as their best self, doing authentically what they love most and getting the most out of people, that's when you get the most engagement, and teams really accelerate in that environment.
How do you do that? And is it through communication? Is it through constant talk and the one-to-one thing? And
I think the core element for me is about really genuinely connecting and understanding your people, which does come through, I think, conversation. There's other ways to do it as well. I mean, I've got some teams I'm working with right now where I'm running psychometrics to help them understand a little bit more. And I'm working with whole intact teams to say, what does this mean that you're an introvert and I'm an extrovert, or whatever the case is, right? And so you can do it in ways like that too, in broader settings. But call me old-fashioned. I think getting to know people on a one-on-one level and what makes them tick is the best way. There are other ways of doing it, but that to me is the best way. And maybe that's because I love to connect with people. To me, there's no greater joy in life than connecting one-on-one with someone.
I totally agree, and I love to speak to people like that one-on-one in terms of their personal life as well. If someone says to me, how's Luke doing with his barbering, and how's Jessica's art doing, and I bet you're missing going to see Sunderland play football, and did you have a curry last night? 'Cause I know you're mad for them. I love when people know those personal details around you, and we should do that. as a leader, I think we should be dropping those into conversations, not just to tick the box, or just to show that you know that about them, but actually because you want to know how Luke's Barbering's going. You want to know, you care.
And that is a leadership superpower, is that when you show people they care, they matter, their opinions matter, they're valued, they're appreciated. It's day in and day out little things that you do to demonstrate the fact that people matter, and they're more than someone occupying a seat or a number on a payroll, right? They're a human being, and you show them that you actually care about them as a person. People talk about how to boost employee engagement. That's how you do it. There's lots of other ways, and I tell companies all the time about how to up it a little bit more with employee engagement, but the real truth is connecting with them at a heart level and showing them they matter as a human being. That gets more out of people than anything else.
I love employee advocacy as well, especially around social media. You know, what you find is, we'll go off on a bit of a tangent here, but when you find a brand, you have a marketing manager who has the keys to the social media stream, and that's their thoughts and that's the company thoughts. Why not let everybody chip in and have that employee advocacy to share about the company from their point of view, not just what the corporate's saying?
Yeah. And sometimes there's a risk in that, right? Because it shows people how it shows the external market how people are really treated on the inside, and not that image that we paint to look pretty to the market. But if you're doing the right thing day in and day out, you shouldn't need to have to worry about that image. It speaks for itself. Your people are your best advocates when you treat them the way that they want to be treated. Fantastic
stuff. I love that. If you've got a question for Adrienne, because we've only got a few more minutes before she leaves us, is there anything you want to leave us with, Adrienne, before he goes? Anything that I haven't asked you or haven't discussed that you want to pop in?
No, the biggest thing for me is, for whether we're talking to people who are the leaders and running the business, or we're talking to people who are showing up and driving the business day in and day out, right? It's be open-minded and think about a new way of working. You know, we've been given this incredibly unusual experience of all of us kind of having to work in a different way, and life has forced us to do something different. What can we take from this experience as a positive and help us to do something different going forward? To me, that is the most important thing, is don't waste this opportunity. If people try to just go back to the way things were, we have really wasted this experience. We need to take the gold nuggets that came from this and try to figure out how we bring that forward in a new way of being, not just getting back to normal. Let that go, and let's start with a clean slate and take what works best from both experiences and create something new.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Adrienne, and for kicking our morning off.
Thanks. It's a real pleasure, and I'm happy to join y'all again sometime in the future.
Thanks so much, and thanks for asking the true or false questions.
Yeah, some of those are a little,
Well, hopefully your mother's not watching. Okay, Adrienne, lovely to see you again.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There she is. She's gone. How cool is Adrienne? What I took away from that was that don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to, go and see your manager and say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I'd like to work from home. We could do this a little bit differently. We've got a voice now, and things have changed. Maybe it would be great to get back to business and just have a chat around what you've done differently, how your mindset might have changed, what things you've implemented in your life that you might want to implement in the workplace, and get together and communicate. Laura, I could listen to Adrienne all day as well. Yeah, she's amazing. Who we got in? We've got Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Thanks so much for you joining us today. That's an epic comment, Mark. I'll check that out, my friend. Who else have we got? Helena, lovely to see you. Thanks so much. Alfie, there's my friend Alfie. Couldn't agree more. We checked all mistakes and unnecessary meetings. Yes, a lot of unnecessary meetings. And I tell you what it is, Alfie, what I used to always kick off about is, don't book my diary out for 30 minutes or an hour. Things can actually take 40 minutes or 20 minutes. We'll just seem to round these things up and just waste time. Thanks so much for that, Katie. Well, we have another wise woman in the green room ready to come in. Let me get my notes. Let me have a look at the timings. Let's see who's next. I need a hand with this, don't I? Let's see who we've got next. I'm just looking at my Facebook page, because I think last time I brought the wrong person at the wrong time, because they sit in the green room watching. I can see you watching in the green room. And Gillian, is it you next? Is it you, John? It's you, John. It's you, John. There you go. I should have my notes in the right way. Right. We have not a wise woman. We have a wise man. Let's have a look. Where is he? Where is he? Come on, where is he? Here he is. We have the CEO of Recovery for Life, which is a specialist drug and alcohol and mental health service that provides testing, training, and treatment to businesses across all sectors in the Northeast and further afield. Now, John has been supporting businesses with COVID-19 testing, and the profits are being pushed to the 2020 fund to support essential community services, work with vulnerable people. So I'm looking forward to hearing from John. So welcome to the Industry Angel, John. Here you are, my friend.
Hi Ian, how are you? And I'm very happy to be a wise woman, if that helps today. I've no problem at all.
Well, it's our Gillian. She's came early. She's getting her hands wrapped.
Yeah.
I'm trying to spin so many plates. And you can look stunned. You can look stunned if you want. Get out. You're not ready yet. John, lovely to see you. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Not at all. Delighted to be here, Ian.
Thanks so much. You've been busy, yeah? You've been busy during this pandemic. And what we said was, what have you been up to? What's been changing since this hit? And I think you and your colleagues are a prime example of that, because you haven't sat back. You've jumped on this whole pandemic and you've put something in place. So why don't you tell us what you've been up to?
Yeah, sure. Well, I suppose the key point is really our background. We're specialists in addiction and mental health issues, and when you're dealing with many of these issues in real terms, what you're dealing with is chaos. And our job in that sort of environment is putting some structure into chaos. So when the pandemic broke, really it's another form of chaos that has come along. And so really we started watching this because we got some strange links with China, which I won't go into, but we started looking at this sort of September, October, November last year, when things started to merge out of China. And then really from February, March this year, we started looking at introducing testing when it was clear what was, the pandemic was going to break. So we've been working with a number of clients, two types really, those who had to keep essential services working straight through the pandemic, but also helping clients prepare for the return after the lockdown. So we've got two very slightly different approaches really, requiring similar but slightly different responses and sort of techniques for addressing them. So we've been doing a lot of testing with right from the beginning, both for the antigen PCR testing, but also we supply the antibody testing, which is a marker for being able to return to work. We've been doing that really since March. And so we've had an interesting track record all the way through, when unfortunately in wider society, it's been harder to get things like tests and things like that. So what we did was, rather than profiteer from the situation, we set up, as you said, the 2020 fund, and we've been able to dish out, I think we're up to around £10,000 worth of things like hand gels, sanitizers, face masks, but also tests. We actually supplied them to GPs and nurses on the front line from the beginning. And we've also, put money into food banks and basically any frontline services that needed it. From the beginning. So it's been a very busy time, and I would suggest in all cases really the biggest thing we're dealing with is managing fear, which is an interesting one. It was great hearing Adrian talk, But that whole situation about we're in unprecedented times, and the normal sort of fight, flight, flop, freeze, befriend approaches to responses to fear don't work in this situation.
So, John, if you just go back to the 2020 fund there, that was interesting there because, you know, we initially saw a clamour for things like hand gels and PPE, especially in care situations as well. A friend of mine, Paul, I mentioned earlier on, who ran healthcare, you know, he had to jump on it quite quickly to get the PPE to keep his staff safe. And obviously we saw a little bit of profiteering as well from some of the pricing rising. Is that something that you identified?
Yeah, definitely. And to be honest, we took the active decision because it was a case of, certainly with some of the organisations we were dealing with, and we've worked with, and we've tried to support some great organisations like Age UK, Gateshead, North Tyneside, Learning Disability North East Network, for example. And those frontline services really suffered in those early days. So what we realised was there was a lot of profiteering, let's be really honest, with the inflated prices for PPE. And partly for all the right reasons, it's because industry business clients are also looking for the same products that frontline care workers would normally be using. So there was a huge demand and rush all at once. And so this is why, you know, with the profits that we bought PPE at quite inflated prices from providers, purely just to grab it, because actually if you've got a small charity or a small organisation who are on limited funds already, frankly, they just weren't able to cope. And the supply coming through from government just wasn't there.
Yeah. So John, just in terms of what Recovery for Life does, do you want to give us a bit of an overview? Because I know you're doing some fantastic work in the region, and I think this region unfortunately needs that work done because you've got some quite sad statistics. I'd love you to talk us through that.
Yeah, sure. Well, and this is part of the reason why we set up Recovery for Life, really specifically working with business, because we identified a huge number of unmet needs. And if you look at the Northeast as a whole, unfortunately, we're at the top of the tree and top of the league tables in a number of areas which we really wouldn't want to be. So if you take, first of all, we've got the highest number of drug deaths in England each year. We've got the highest level of alcohol-related deaths. A few years ago, it was 22% higher than any other part of the country. We've got the highest level of opiate prescriptions and prescribing being dished out for sometimes good reasons, etc. But we've got a huge opiate issue. We've got the highest level of codeine-based products sold over the counter anywhere in the UK and possibly in Europe. And then, we've got some of the worst mental health statistics, which this pandemic are actually going to make a lot worse. And that's going to be the big challenge going forward for businesses, to be honest. And at the same time, all of this sort of comes together. We've got the highest suicide rate in the UK. And actually, in many of the cases, unfortunately, much of our work we're brought in to do is in the follow-up after a suicide or after an attempted suicide, or we're brought in by somebody to support a family member an employee whose family member might have taken their own lives. So we're seeing it, that plus the very, very high levels of cocaine use and drug use, particularly cocaine in the Northeast, don't really help all those underlying sort of other health issues that we've got some of the worst health inequalities anywhere in Europe, in some of the worlds, particularly Middlesbrough and Hartlepool, but Sunderland as well. And it's no surprising if you look at the death rates through the pandemic, actually many of those are, if you look at Sunderland in particular, it's really not surprising that this situation has sort of evolved. The challenge is how businesses look at taking this forward in the new world, because it certainly won't go back to where it was. I would agree with Adrienne, there's an opportunity at this stage to redefine that and to actually work in a very different way. And one of those key issues that businesses will have to get sort of involved in is the wider health and mental health of its workforce. going forward. So we're seeing a huge increase in trauma-related inquiries. So things like PTSD and things like that, OCD, general anxiety disorders. But we're seeing those going through the roof, and that will only continue, particularly if there's going to be a second wave, which is expected.
John, that was absolutely really hard to hear, if I'm honest. It was really tough to hear, and I didn't know a few of those stats, but that it's not good enough. And there must be tough working in this role, because you see that, and I guess you can help it, okay? You can help the symptoms, but how do you treat the cause, John? What can you do from recovery life? Can you bang a drum? What do you do?
We do a number of things, and most people will never have heard of us before, because we don't actually, virtually all our work is by referral, and we don't really advertise ourselves. We do quite a lot when we're members of a number of industry bodies, such as the Chamber, NOF, NEAA, etc., etc. But I think the key point here is, in pointing these sort of things out, we don't want people to be disheartened with this, because the key thing here is, our job is, and our approach is, not to frighten people with these scary statistics. Our job is to highlight them, because we firmly believe if you know what you're dealing with, you can deal with anything. And actually, we've proven this with the clients we work with, and some are from, very small operations up to very large international companies. What we find is actually there is a genuine will from the right companies. Now, we're very lucky. We've got a great client base who works with us, and we have proper dialogue around these issues. But it's usually we're brought in when something's gone wrong. So we do interventions, direct interventions, which is quite unusual for a private occupational health type service. Yeah, but we'll go in and sort the problem out. If somebody can't get on a waiting list to see a psychologist for 2 years or 3 years or something, we had one this week, then we'll see somebody in 24 hours. And we're used to dealing with complexity. So the interventions bit, the treatment bit, is quite often brought in to sort out a problem. And we end up quite often working backwards to looking, okay, well, how we manage this is by actually through training and awareness, particularly at supervisor level on the ground floor, because it's quite easy to get leadership buy-in. That's usually not the problem. It's usually the middle level of the people who are actually going to have to implement some of these conversations. And it's like Adrian said, it's about understanding those smaller teams on the ground. And then before that, we use even our approach on simple things like drug and alcohol testing, which is required in most sort of safety critical roles. We do it in a very different way. And actually, for a good example is, if somebody was to fail a test, we don't let them out of our sight until we know somebody's going to be okay. And we actually put in a little bit of advice and support to direct people to problems if they have got a problem with drugs or alcohol. Quite often, the main bit of concern that's raised with this is, how am I going to tell my wife, is the biggest question that gets raised. And we talk through those issues, because what we're trying to do is nitpick. You can't catastrophize about these issues, but you've got to be aware of them. And the three together, those sort of components, are where we're finding we're making the most impact with businesses, to be honest.
It's really interesting, John. So what it sounds like there, then, that you may react to an issue, but then you suddenly go into proactive mode with the organisation and try to stop the spread, maybe, or try to address any particular issues that might be there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the key to doing this isn't about us sort of riding in on white horse and sorting everything out. It's about empowering companies, businesses, and leaders, but at all levels through the organization. So we work really well with union reps and with union and work council representatives. It's interesting, quite often we'll be brought in and we'll say a drug and alcohol testing program. We always recommend an amnesty period, and we work with people to come forward, because the reality is people use drugs. There isn't a night out you can go out on the northeast and not come across drugs. They're everywhere. But actually, it's about winning the hearts and minds argument of explaining why that's an impact on the business and how people still get hurt. 60% of workplace fatalities still involve alcohol after all these years. So if you look at that, even though we've got a fairly good record, it's sort of plateaued. Nothing's really changed from that. That has to be around behaviors. And that's the real challenge I think businesses are going to follow. Plus, what you're going to see now coming forward will be, there will be, redundancy programs and things like this. But what's really interesting, some of the programs that we've worked with, some of our clients, we've been working with them to build in where they think there's going to be a redundancy program. For example, we run specialist EAP lines, for example. So it's more really as an identification for more complex needs, shall we say.
EAP?
Sorry, say again.
EAP?
Yeah, sorry, Employee Assistance Program, like helplines. But we do it, it's more of a specialist role, but we do them. And one of the things that we've noticed is some of the clients who are a very good client, was the first one to do it a few months ago, is looking at actually building into redundancy plans and policies, that support line for 6 months post redundancy. Now that actually is quite a fantastic way of thinking about it if you realize you've got to make difficult decisions.
Yeah.
And actually, as I said, we've got some fantastic businesses we're working with. And I think there is a genuine will for those who are thinking about this and aware of what the real situation is to get it right.
Yeah. How can you support leaders in this current situation, John? So leaders are going to be really keen to get their workforce back in. How can they be sure that it's the right thing to do, not pressurize staff? Because I think we've seen I've certainly seen posts on LinkedIn about some staff from an HR point of view not willing to return right now. There might be concern there. So have you come across this?
Yeah, we see it all the time. And really interestingly, it sounds strange, but a lot of the testing that we do, and particularly with, we have a whole risk management system, which looks at 4 different levels of risk. And the first is the risk to the business of people coming back. Now, a lot of that is about physical sort of distancing and things like that, and measures or within the workplace, managing the physical environment. But the second level of risk is actually the fear of employees returning. And the real fear is that they'll bring back something to the family or to themselves if they've got underlying health conditions, or to the family, friends, its neighbors, etc. And then your third level is actually around where you need to identify people who either previously had issues with sort of underlying health conditions or mental health conditions. There's a lot of work to be done around sort of trying to identify some of these subsets within the workforce, because they need slightly different approaches. But what we have found is where companies have offered, particularly the antibody testing, as part of their return to work programs, and very much as an offer of, could you, basically, would you like a test? Everybody has really snapped up on this. And one company, I saw the proof of this, was part of our role is when people have tested, if they've tested positive, and we break the news to them and direct them into the appropriate services through NHS or, local PHE, etc. What's interesting is the number of people who've said to us, they never would have thought that the company believed so much in them, or, thought so much of them, to test them and, in this case, their families. So when you've got a company doing something that they can't get elsewhere, for example, it totally redefines the psychological contract between employee and employer. And testing in this context has become a reassurance. Say, don't worry, come back. The physical environment's already sorted out. We've got the policies in support. If you're struggling or if you're worried about coming back to work and it's impacted on, we've all been isolated, we've all been stressed, etc. There is a support role here. Plus, we'll actually, if you want, you can have testing. And it's a very cheap way of doing it. Tests aren't expensive for antibodies. Then actually what you're looking at is redefining that relationship and recognizing the fears that people have. Where people don't recognize them is where it's brewing a storm for 3-6 months' time. And that's really what we're seeing. But I think that whole redefinition of the psychological contract is what we're really seeing now. And I would hope to see that's the greatest benefit that will come out of, basically post-lockdown.
Just in terms of the testing, John, I think we heard a lot in the press that some of the testing wasn't given the correct results, and some of them weren't fit for purpose. What's your thoughts on that?
I think there were. I mean, when it first started, I'll be really honest, although we use sort of the government guidelines, PHE guidelines, we use them as a floor, not a ceiling, if that makes sense. Our main focus, we looked abroad, we looked at South Korea, we looked at Taiwan, we looked at places like Greece, Germany, New Zealand, and we looked at what they were using. So the tests that we use, for example, there were a lot of dodgy tests on the market, and even the Chinese government clamped down on these. So anything that's exported, most of them are made there. Anything exported has to be certified by the Chinese government now. Okay, but the real point here is there were a lot of problems with accuracy. Some of them just didn't work, but there were a lot of good tests available. And I think the problem here is you either take the view of it's either a bad test, which is what the government said in the early days, is a bad test is worse than no test. Well, actually, fundamentally, I disagree with that, because at least it's an indicator. Yeah, and so it was really interesting. But the second thing is, if you take the test we use, they've got like 98% accuracy levels, 98.7, I think it is, or something like that, on sensitivity and specificity, which are the two contrasts. To put this in context for people, we actually put out a post comparing the accuracy levels to other tests people are used to. So the tests that are being rejected or were rejected in the early days, certainly the ones we were using, for example, they weren't actually rejected, but they actually were of the same accuracy levels as home-based HIV kits, hepatitis kits, diabetes kits, pregnancy tests. So actually, when you look at the parity between them, there's a fundamental flaw in the logic. If a home HIV test has an accuracy level of 95% and is acceptable, but you're rejecting a 98% antibody test, that doesn't make any sense. And it's not, more importantly, what other national governments have done in their programs. So that's not don't want to get into the politics of it, but there is a fundamental flaw in what the messages have been about testing going out.
So, John, it sounds like you and your colleagues really jumped on this. What made you? I know obviously you've got the background in the drug and alcohol and that kind of stuff. Where did the decision come to dive straight into this? Was it forced by employers? Did they ask you to do this, or was it a decision that you made?
It was a combination, because there was a combination of things that we've seen, because as I said, we've got a great client base, and we have previously had to turn around where we didn't think the companies had the same sort of ethos or values that matched with us. We have had to write to people and say, we're not the right provider for you. So I think the very first thing is we've got a great relationship with with the clients that we've been using these. But what really struck us from the outset was the same clients were turning around to us, a number of them saying, we don't know what to do. It was as simple as that. What are the options? And it was actually some of those conversations which triggered, we said, okay, well, look, we know this weird thing's happening in China, because we had these additional links, because we're involved in martial arts. So it's actually through those sort of routes that we actually had links. And we thought, okay, well, what are other people doing? And that was the trigger for it. And the thing is, a test in itself is only one component. What you really need to look at is understand, and this is why we developed the risk framework, which is a whole system, which is really to look at understanding who your employees are. And it's not just about that risk. It's about, okay, lockdown will do a certain role of it. Will help in a certain way. How do we get people back and safely, and understand that A, they're not going to transmit to others, B, or as far as we can control it, Secondly, they're not going to kill their own families by going to work. That's really what the fear is. And the bit by coming back and transmitting back. And then you've got actually about, okay, well, you've got a real issue around health and safety. Once people are back in the workplace, if people are coming out of isolation, it certainly isn't a case coming back to work. What you've got to look at is almost treat everybody as if they've been on 3 to 6 months sick leave and are returning to work. So the very first thing we're saying is almost treat everybody as a sort of phased return. And the very first thing you've got to do is go through all your health and safety procedures with people again, because they will have forgotten them. They'll be out of the loop on these. You've got to look at the impact on alcohol. Alcohol increase has jumped up anywhere between 30 and 50%, depending on what report you read. So actually what condition people are coming back into and psychological sort of approaches that how they feel is going to be vital to this going forward. It's going to be a very interesting stage. And I think things like your drug and alcohol policies, we've recommended to our clients, for example, that they recirculate them before people return to work. Because actually just get people focused that, look, guys, we really need this to be a safe environment. This is for your benefit. And people have been locked away. And what we don't want is what's happened in India with the there's been multiple deaths on health and safety related deaths from people returning from lockdown on things like gas pipelines. One incident killed 12 people, injured 300, because they were out of practice of following those standards, health and safety procedures. So there's a lot of work to do. It can be done.
I think that's a fantastic bit of knowledge to leave leaders with, John, the phased return, going over health and safety procedures again, and maybe having a document or a plan or a policy about how we get people back into the workplace that's actually sat and thought through.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would say to anybody who's listening, if we're a great believer in collaboration and sharing information and advice. Nobody owns this stuff. So if ever anybody wants to just bounce stuff off us, or even if they're working with other people, it really doesn't matter. We're really happy to share what our learnings are, and we're very happy to hear if people have got really good case studies of how they've addressed it. And likewise, we're there to support people if they need it.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, John. Where can we find you then?
So you can come to our website, which is www.recovery4life.co.uk, or people will happily circulate my email address is just john.devitt@recovery4life.co.uk.
Great stuff. If anyone caught that, could pop in the comments. That would be great. John, thanks so much. Thanks so much. That was a really interesting insight. I hadn't thought about a lot of the things you've said there, so I really appreciate your time. And yeah, good stuff. Thanks so much, John.
Yeah. And thanks for having me on, Ian.
Yes,
thanks now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There he is. Wow, I didn't think about that at all in terms of putting a plan in place to get people back. And can you remember what Adrienne said about don't be afraid to ask, to approach your employer or manager? What about that? You could approach your manager and say, yeah, you want me to start on, I don't know, July 1st. What's our policy? What's our plan of our return? Because they may not have thought about it. So that was really interesting. And what else John said was, if you know what you're dealing with, you can deal with anything. So that communication and that transparency can really help in anything in life, to be honest. Right, good stuff. What else we got there? We've got our invest team. Yes, great advice. It was. I'm guessing that might be Lindsay. Very good advice. Thanks so much, Mike, for popping that, and for Laura for popping that in the comments. Brilliant stuff. They've obviously been working hard during this pandemic to make a difference, make a change. Graham, great to see you with us. Laura, thanks for engaging. Gary, excellent to see you again. And Alfie, let me know if you're here in the comments. Right then, so I have found my schedule. Okay, I know who I've got next. It is a wise woman, even though John played a great wise woman, I must admit. Let's have a look then at who we have next. We have a no-nonsense stress buster, Our guest has taught thousands how to tackle stress and handle the challenges of life and work in ways that are straightforward, practical, and effective. Professional trainer of Stress Express at Feel Good Kick. Welcome to the industry angel, Gillian Fortune. Right, can I hear you? I can't hear you. Tell me something. Have you got yourself muted?
Yeah.
There you go. You've got yourself muted. You are causing trouble today, sister.
Hang on. Communication, right? I've been in this green room since 9:45 just to make sure that I was in, etc. You never said don't come in early. You never said.
If you check your emails, my friend, I've sent you the link and I've said be here 10 minutes before.
Well, I was here 10 minutes before.
You were here about an hour before. You were here before me.
Yeah, I know. So you'll have a LinkedIn message going, Ian, there's nothing happening. Help.
Honestly, my phone is on fire at 10:03 going, far away are you? I'm like, no.
Well, of course, at 10:02, I'm thinking, oh, I must have got the tech wrong because tech's, my nemesis, but I'm dealing with it. And so it got to 2 minutes past 10 and I thought, right, okay. And just as my brain started to go into, a little bit of stress mode, I put myself into thinking mode and I ran my friend an English, our friend an English, because I know she's done one of your podcasts. And do you know, she just talked me through and she said, no, don't worry, it'll be on. And then you came on at 3 minutes past 10. But at 2 minutes past 10, I was thinking, I'm in the wrong place.
We've got this. Yeah. Don't worry. Right, I'm going to take my lanyard off, right? Because it's catching my eye off in 2 seconds. Right, there you go.
And then you started asking, when Adrienne come on, you started asking Adrienne, like, true or false? And I'm thinking, oh, I thought you were going to do that for everyone. So I don't know what to expect, Ian. That's the truth.
Hang on then, true or false? Do you want some?
I can handle anything.
I do have a little quiz for Ray. When's Ray on? Ray's on after you. He's probably not watching, right? He doesn't know what to expect. But I'm going to throw a quiz at him.
All right, okay.
But he's a true performer, so he will just deal with it instantly.
Right,
Pet. What's going on?
Oh well, I've become a Zoom queen, Ian. I mean, you were asking the question. You know, what have you been doing? Oh, there you go. There was something. It's the Zoom queen. From my point of view, I sat here at the beginning of lockdown. Hey, Natalie Paris has put Gillian McNally. I'm not Gillian McNally at all, Natalie. I'm Gillian Fortune. I sat here at the beginning of lockdown, and I do face-to-face training in the workplace and for different organisations and charities, and I run my own events and speaking, and it had all gone. And I thought, well, I'll not tell you what I thought. This is about online. And seriously, 4 months ago, when people were saying, "Oh, well, can you Zoom?" I didn't know the first thing about Zoom. So I sat here and thought, well, I've got 2 options, really. I just have to wait until all of this is over, or I do something about it. And I'm now delivering workshops online, masterclasses online. And recently, I work a lot teaching parents of children with mental illness, and worked with an organisation, and we did a Zoom / Facebook Live. And that session has been seen by over 300 parents of children with mental illness.
Well, now, was that in the Facebook group, Gillian?
Yeah, well, it was snazzy because it was me and the host were on Zoom, and then it delivered to Facebook Live. Don't ask us how, because I have no idea. But the point is, I could never have gotten to 300 people all at once. I mean, and that was just amazing. And so for me, that's what's changed. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm loving lockdown. I mean, I'm not loving that people are struggling. Other people are struggling. And I've had COVID and recovered, so that's the ideal. But yeah, it's working for me, but I've made it work. I think that's the difference. I don't want to sound trite there saying, oh, it works for me. No, I've made this work. And I think the future here, and Alfie Joey made a comment earlier about, you know, if we go back to the way we were, then that's quite ridiculous. But so for me, I've changed just so much. In fact, I'm not going back to the old ways of working at all. I'm the new Zoom queen.
Good, and that's obviously what Adrian was saying. You know, we can't return, and I think you're probably not loving it, but you've adapted. You've adapted really well by the sounds of it, and I think a lot of us have. I know the first 2 weeks of lockdown for me, it was like a bit of a, it was like lying on the beach a little bit. You know, the alcohol consumption increased a little bit. I eased off the pedal a bit, and then I thought, wow, I can't keep doing this, and I had to then give myself a new routine. You know, because my routine, I mean, I'm a real creature of habit. We are as humans, and children certainly are as well. And you mentioned there about working with children. I think children are a lot more resilient than us, but there is a point where children do need our help and our guidance. And if we haven't got structure, then...
What's funny though, Ian, is I don't work with children. I work with parents.
Parents of children, yeah.
However, because I teach them techniques, really practical ways to handle things, what happens is I teach the parents, and because the parents are handling things better, they're handling the situations, which actually helps the family. But I think I love it. I design my things so that parents can pass them on to children or within the family. And so when parents pass the techniques on to their children, and then the children pick them up, what you find then is the children remind the parents, because you're right, we're creatures of habit. Our brains love routine and rhythm and pattern. But because we're adults and we've got our long held ways of doing things, things drop off. Whereas when you've got a child in your family that reminds the parent of the techniques and they do them together, that for me, when I get that kind of feedback, I love it. I love it. And I think that's a great successful thing for a family. So, yeah.
It is. And I know you're going to give us some techniques. And this is what I wanted to do on this particular conference, is give people some takeaways and help people back. And I mean, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but, you know, you mentioned about impact, and we broke 100,000 downloads on the podcast during the pandemic, and I love that. I love that because I know people have been impacted and people have gained value, and the messages that I receive in emails and text and social stuff just have really inspired me to do more of this stuff. It is quite addictive. So you just said there that you've impacted 300 people, then fantastic, and I'm sure you'll impact more today. So what I really wanted you to come on, Gillian, you are a wise woman, my friend, but also I wanted some key takeaways, something people can start implementing in their lives and help them going forward. Okay.
John said that managing fear is a key issue. And then you repeated what he said was about, if you know what you're dealing with, you can deal with anything. And that's kind of key for me, because one of the things, I've got two techniques for you, or for everybody. But one of the things is I wanted to talk about change and uncertainty. And we're in the biggest period of change and uncertainty. And the thing is, because our brains actually love routine, rhythm, pattern, consistency, we actually psychologically resist change. And especially when it's being forced upon us, when we're choosing to change, that's a little bit different, but it's out of our comfort zone. So, and change, it threatens our emotional well-being because it creates uncertainty. I've got a lovely quote here for you by a horror writer from the 19th and early 20th century, from H.P. Lovecraft. I'm going to hold it up and see if people can see it, right? It says...
Do you want me to read it, or could you read it? Oh, you've actually got it written on the back. You are prepared.
Yeah, I have, yeah, prepared. That's me. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. And that is what uncertainty does for us. It puts our brains into this threat mode. Now, so coming on to the first technique that I want to teach everybody is the instant your brain perceives a threat. Now, it's built over millions of years. Your brain is built to be on alert to perceive threat, but it's built to perceive, you know, danger, harm. But now we've evolved. We're still seeing threat, because anything that makes us that hurts us physically puts us in any danger, but also it's on alert for anything at all that makes us feel emotionally uncomfortable or creates any kind of discomfort and anxiety for us. And that's the old part of your brain called the reptilian part of your brain. Ta-da! The thing is, that is on alert. That part of your brain is on alert all of the time, looking out for threats. And when it comes across something that's going to threaten our physical body or our emotional well-being, it kind of signals, you know, it's like a nee-nah. And then your brain, the other part of your brain, the middle part of your brain, the limbic system, goes, we've got a problem, and starts with an anxiety response. It can start off quite mild, but it's an anxiety response. And once you're in that part of your brain,
was that a
this
monkey?
goes, sorry, monkey,
Was that
yeah.
a monkey?
Yeah.
Okay, scary monkey.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the anxiety, fear-driven, emotional part of your brain. And once that kicks in, that feeling of anxiety goes right through your body. And when I talk about anxiety, I'm not necessarily talking about panic attacks here, but that goes right through your body in a few seconds, right? So far, so anxious. The point is, if you don't know how to stop that, it then continues on another loop and on another loop. And we all know what it's like to overthink. Thinking is brilliant. Overthinking is the problem. So once we start to allow that fear to continue on the loop, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And what we've got to do is get our brains out of that mode and into, are you ready for me final prop? Calm brain, control mode, from this front part of your brain, your prefrontal.
Was that a dolphin or a shark?
Well, do you know what? I usually ask that question when I've got longer. I ask the question. I don't know if it's a dolphin or a shark, but I showed it the other night. And do you know what people focused on? The zippy bit.
The zippy bit?
The zippy bit. They were talking about me showing the private parts of dolphins. I mean, really? I don't know what people are on sometimes. But yeah. But the point is, right, once your brain is in that phase, you're then anxious and you start to go into your stress response mode. So we've got to get out of it. The thing is, how do we get out of it? Well, don't worry. I'm going to tell you, because I'm asking the questions and I'm answering them as well. So what you have to do is take an action. What are you laughing at? Right.
There is. I might as well just tip me.
Don't. Well,
come on, you ask the questions, right. You answer them.
Right. The thing is, I'm asking and answering, because the point is this: you have to get your brain into action mode. You have to get it into thinking mode, working from a different part of your brain, this prefrontal cortex. How do you do it? You take an action. And I am now going to give you the action to take. And it's this. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Hang on, I might have a drum roll somewhere. No, I won't drum roll one.
That would have been brilliant. We should have planned this a bit better. But never mind. Next time, we'll have a drum roll. In fact, next time, I'll have it as a prop. But you take a breath. Right? You take a breath. Right? You go. Right? One breath. That's it. The instant you take that breath, your brain's in control mode. Now, it took a second. That's it. And I know people are going to be thinking, if I was paying for this, I'd feel a bit robbed, because she's just taught us how to take a big, deep breath. No, I didn't. I taught you how to take a big, deep breath on purpose. On purpose.
Yeah.
That is key. That is what makes this work. What you're doing is getting off that roundabout by taking an action, and the action is a big, deep breath. And it's just one action that you can take, but I'm telling you now, I've taught so many people this, and it works for them. It's amazing because it stops that loop. It puts you into control mode, which is working from your rational brain, your thinking brain. And when you're in that mode, you can come up with solutions. You can't come up with solutions when you're in anxiety brain. So once you're in there, the thing is, you're in control mode. But more importantly, and we all know this. Thanks, Alfie. We all know this, though, is that when we get a bit anxious or stressed or worried, we react. We say the thing that we know we shouldn't have said. And we do that. We all know this, yeah? But I'm bothered about we even start the thinking processes that really don't serve us, but we know that we say the thing. So when you take that big deep breath, it might only be a second, but believe me, it's in that second where you don't say the thing, you don't do the thing, you don't think the thing, and it puts you in control.
Should we have a little? Should we take a second to have a big breath together?
Yeah, go on then. I think that was your way of going, Gillian, take a breath, please.
I want to. What? Have you got any techniques? Do you do like 3 in, hold it, and 3 out or something?
No. You see, that's different. Now, when we start to get into that kind of technique, which is very simple, and if we've got time, I'll talk people through that one. But the point is this is about getting you in control. And the instant you're in control, then you can do other things. But you have to be in control brain to be able to then take action to be calm. But this just stops your automatic negative reactions and you're in control. So is everyone ready? Right? I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1, and then we're just going to stop and take a big deep breath on purpose. Are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. That's it. You can let that out. You don't have to wait. You don't have to, whatever. You're now in control mode. Now, just a funny little thing here. I've taught this to so many people, and it's amazing how many people have said to me, oh, yeah, I took the big deep breath, but then, a couple of minutes later, I had to take it again. And then a couple of minutes after that, and I ended up having to take 20 breaths, right? And my response is this. Fine. Your choice. Take a breath or don't take the breath. And taking a breath 20 times, fair enough. But let me tell you now, the alternative is for your brain to stay in anxiety mode. I'd rather be taking 20 breaths than feel anxious. And so that's it. It's the first technique I'm giving you is as simple as that, but you have to do it on purpose.
Is it a bit of a reset, Gillian? So are you literally just resetting your brain? I know our brains make like tens of thousands of decisions a day subconsciously for us. But sometimes when you're overthinking, you've got loads of stuff going around your mind. Are you just saying, sitting down, taking a breath, resetting?
You know something? Yes, that is what I'm saying. Although for some people it isn't reset. Sometimes just being in control mode is like, oh, something new. But when I said that here I was sat here at 10 o'clock going, oh, I think I'm in the wrong place. Right? Now, I could have let that go on, but because I do what I do, I just sat here and went, right, okay, breathe. I took my breath and I actually said to myself, okay, what can you do? And that was when I rang Anne, because I knew that Anne would be able to tell me. So what I'm trying to say is I could think about something to do rather than sit here and go, oh, I don't know what to do. And if I hadn't taken that breath, you can stay there for a while. I'm not talking about people being stress heads. I'm just talking about when the thing happens in that moment, taking a breath makes you able to think and find a solution. You cannot find a solution when your brain is in working from the limbic system, from fear, from anxiety and emotion. So yeah, a reset. Next question.
Takeaway 1, complete.
Ta-da!
Takeaway 2, engage.
Okay, right.
Hang on, Gillian, what's in the boxes?
Files and
Not
stuff.
any more cuddly toys.
No. Files and other props. I've got other props for different things. I know. Shall I show you one of my props? Right. That sounds. No, I won't show you.
Is it a rhino? Because they're my favourites.
No, but I'll make up a technique where I can use a rhino. Right.
Good.
I'll find
I'm sure it'll be
I'll,
about thick skin and wearing armour.
Yeah.
Come on,
all right.
then. Take away
right.
2. Shut up, Farah.
Okay. Yeah. Shut up, you. Right. So. Once you've taken your big deep breath, the next technique is about tricking your brain. Now, if you've worked with me in any way before, these are 2 techniques that you will have learned. I just want to preempt the technique though, because, you know, this is all about getting back to business, getting back into the workplace and the uncertainty that goes along with that, Ian, because that was kind of one of the things that we were talking about is people going back and feeling unsure and uncertain. And when I've spoken to people, quite a few people have gone back, but their jobs have changed. And that in itself creates this uncertainty that leads to some form of anxiety and then stress. So here is my technique for that. The first thing is do the big breath technique because keep yourself in control mode. But the next one is once you're in control, you want to feel more confident. And I'm going to teach you now how to trick your brain, into feeling more confident. So it's a really, really easy technique. When you feel confident, your posture is positive. Your shoulders are back, your head is up. That is, I know, I love it when people do this, Ian. People all of a sudden start doing that because I usually tell people off, you know, when they're online. This works online brilliantly. But the point is, our posture is upright. We're positive. Our head's up. So not only is our brain in positive posture, in positive thought mode, but it shows in our body language. But conversely, when we are in negative mode, when we are unsure, when we're worried and we lack in that confidence, our posture closes in on itself. And as we close in, the brain starts to work in that less confident mode. So the instant you can be confident and feel confident, and this is the technique. So you've taken your big deep breath and now you're going to take another action. And it is simply, I'm feeling like that. I'm going to get my shoulders back and get my head up. So come on, everyone, shoulders back, head up. And you can take a big deep breath. In fact, normally as you do this, you would take a big deep breath at the same time. Now, if you do that quickly in order to trick your brain, so you're feeling it lacking in confidence, and then you just go, come on. All of a sudden, your brain goes, way, get in, right? And your brain, you're working from this part of your brain, but you start now to produce hormones, positive feel-good hormones, and then you give off signals. So you are now in control mode, feeling more confident, and keep your shoulders back, keep your head up on purpose. And you feel much more confident. And when you are there, you can start to think. You see, when we're in worry mode, we feel less confident to be able to deal with problems. In fact, when we're in worry mode, we really can't, because 2 different parts of our brain that can't work at the same time. So the instant we put ourselves into this positive body posture, our brain works accordingly, and we can start to think about solutions and not problems, so we can deal with situations. So that is the technique. Shoulders back, head up on purpose, right? And keep doing that and keep that posture if you possibly can. but I've got a couple of minutes, so I'm going to tell you this part because this is really important. Other people pick that up unconsciously, and they're looking constantly at people. We all are. We are always looking around. We see people, and before we have a conscious thought, we have weighed them up, and we have decided, based purely on the signals that that person's given off and their body posture, that's a confident person. Here's what happens. When we perceive confidence, we then perceive competence. So it doesn't matter what is actually going on. If that person is going, hey, look at me, I'm confident, right? We perceive that they are more competent if they are confident. And when we think that people are confident and competent, we treat them differently. We treat them more positively. And I just can't begin to tell you how many people I've taught to deal with professionals, again, dealing with people who, or bosses, managers, when you don't have the confidence. Once you do this, people believe in your confidence and treat you accordingly. So here endeth the lesson. But before you say anything, Ian, I'm just going to tell you this, right? I know, take a breath, right? I research all the time, and I just make stuff simple because I don't see the point in making everything complex. Making it simple is my superpower. But the thing is, in all the research around uncertainty I read, what they kept coming up with was, so how do people handle uncertainty? And what they came up with, in a nutshell, was be in the moment. And these studies are from the last 5 or 6 years, and that's great. And I thought, yeah, I've been teaching this for a long time. When you feel uncertain, having a simple, straightforward, practical action to take is what changes everything. And that's it. But I know the question you're going to ask us is, what can we tell leaders? What message can we give to leaders? My message is this. Shut up, don't make me sound.
I am totally redundant. I get this.
Listen, my message to managers and leaders is this. You can have the best policies, procedures, perk boxes in the world. And I love the processes that Adrienne's talked about, and John's talked about. But if as a manager and a leader, if you haven't allowed your people to learn, and from me, I suggest, how to handle those moments of insecurity, of change, of lacking in confidence, of how to be in control, you've let them down. And that is my message, is give your people the opportunity to be able to handle what life and work throws at them. Right, you can ask us a question now if you want.
I'm not, that was really powerful.
That was fine.
Thanks so much. We've got some great feedback from everybody who's watching. So
good.
Thanks for sharing that, Gillian. And I can imagine everybody watching home breathing in and out now, and they're all sitting up straight. And so well done. You've given us a bit of a kick.
It matters online as well. It matters online because, again, if you're in a business situation, and Chloe Page, because I've done a lot of stuff on the Muscle Club over the past few months, isn't saying to people, if you want to be taken seriously when you're business networking, shoulders back, head up, and look like you mean business.
Right, that's a great place to leave it on, because you've meant business today, and to be honest, I could have removed me out of that hole and I could have had a rest for half an hour. You've just shared so much wisdom, so that was great. I've had a breath. Thanks for all your cuddly toys. Try and get a rhino next time. I think it might have been a blue whale, to be honest, a blue whale, not a dolphin.
Whatever.
Right. Okay, sister, I love you. See you soon.
Ta-ra.
There she is. She's gone. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks so much for all the comments whilst you've been watching live. Laura did a little drum roll. I must get some sound effects done. Thanks so much, Chloe. Yes, she's helped us a lot of our friends. She is amazing indeed. Great outlook on life. John's here. John will be joining us shortly, one of our guests. He's logged in for a while. let me know if you are here. That would be great. So then, right, we don't need Gillian anymore. She's out the window. Well done. Right then, who's next on the hit list? I can now welcome the CEO from the Customs House. This man gives so much of his time as an active school governor, chair of the Chloe and Liam Forever Together Trust. He was made an MBE in 2010 for his services to Northeast culture. He spends 7 weeks a year dressed as a woman. Hands down, the most witty, handsome, and intelligent Ray I know. Welcome to the industry angel, Mr. Ray Spencer, MBE.
Hello, thank you. Hello, everybody. Ian, you need to go to Specsavers if you think I'm attractive.
Well, you almost...
Gillian was great, wasn't she? Gillian, no. I'm feeling I need to sit like this.
Feeling good?
Yeah.
Well, Ray, I did say the most witty, handsome, and intelligent Ray I know.
All right. Okay, yeah. Okay.
I only know 2 Rays.
Yes. Poor soul, the other one that you know.
Yeah, he's probably not watching anyway. Have you been on your Xbox, Gaffer?
Well, you know, when we got all of this lockdown thing, as you know, when you did one of these first ones, I said, well, actually, the kit I have at home I'd not be able to speak to you in an audible way. But now, as the 3 weeks turned into 3 months, I now have the kit from the offices now in this dressing table. It's Trisha's dressing table that I'm at, and I stole my son's Xbox headset to be able to use it. I know I'm evil. So,
sorry, I'm laughing because you remember we spoke last time from that position. I asked if you were on the toilet.
Yes, you did. Because of the, yeah.
So, and you
a screen to give a bit of privacy and to allow other people to use this room without me taking it over as my office all the time.
Trisha's not lying in bed with the bacon sandwich and a cup of tea, is she?
If only. She'll be busy being very homeschooling at the minute downstairs.
Homeschooling, yeah. Well, we all know all about that, and you've even put your dazzly shirt on today. I love that because the light's sparkling and catching it. You look like you should be on stage, right?
I thought you needed a lift.
Thanks, mate.
In front of my butterfly screen, yeah.
So what I'd love to hear is we've heard a lot. I don't know if you managed to catch some of the speakers today. We've heard a lot from how to transform with heart from Adrienne this morning. We've had techniques from Gillian there about resetting yourself and getting yourself in control. We've heard from John Devitt about the impact on business and employees and the proactive approach they took. But I'd love to speak to you today, Ray, because I've watched from afar about some of the things that the Customs House has done. Obviously, the Customs House is a charity and relies on bums on seats, essentially, and those bums, unfortunately, couldn't be on seats. They're actually now at home on their own sofa seats, and you've been doing a lot of online stuff, haven't you, to try to keep the wheels turning?
Yes, I wasn't able to catch all of this morning's because I was in a finance meeting, which we seem to be having more regularly than usual. As you pointed out, the whole of the theatrical business and art centres like ours are closed, and if, like many businesses, if you're not making an income and still spending money, times are difficult. But we still wanted to have a presence in the community. So we've been putting on a number of things, some to encourage people to donate, and some, like we have a masterclass this afternoon, to help our young people still be the best that they can be. So we've had actors doing workshops on Shakespeare, we've had break dancing, we've had musical workshops. And it's all about continuing to say, although we can't welcome you into our space, we can come into your space and we can still interact with you. And we've been very fortunate to have people like Joe McKeldry who said, look, Ray, I will stream and get people to donate, and that'll come to the Customs House to help you during these times. We've had a number of wacky events, like we've had a ghost hunt around the.
So that way, David last week, yeah.
Sunday we're doing one where David is going to be talking to a lot of people who have appeared in our pantos over the years and talking about their stories. We've done the quiz with a host of celebrities. So a lot of different people have come forward and said we're going to support Customs House, and we're very, very grateful, and we're very, very lucky. But a difficult time for everybody, and being positive and getting back to work and using those tips Gillian had will be something we'll all have to do as we move forward.
It was interesting that the last couple of speakers, I think one of the key takeaways from me was that when our teams return to work, it's not so much a matter of just saying, right, okay, get yourself in on Monday, I'll see you there. It's, John mentioned maybe a phased return for some people, and having a procedure and policies on what return looks like. And something really interesting, what he said was health and safety awareness can often have been forgotten about over this last few months, and it's trying to re-educate and give our staff a bit of a refresher on what's what the policies and procedures are.
Well, we were in the finance meeting today, which I've just left. We were talking because they also are HR. We were looking at the length of time we would need to bring the staff back before we started generating money. So get them off furlough and get them back into the organisation. And we reckon we'll need a fortnight. We'll need a fortnight because how we operate as an organisation will have changed. The physical space, how we move people around the building, but also to get them up to speed with the skills they had when they walked away 3 months ago. To get them up to wearing different gear and understanding the rules around personal protection, and understand we'll be working in a different way. We're going to have pods of people, whereas you might work with a different group of people every day. You're going to be working with the same group of people, a small pod. And so if anybody needs to be isolated and the pod has to isolate, we can bring another pod in, and it's not affected the whole team across the whole of the organization. So the way we're going to work is new to me and everybody else, and we're going to have to spend at least a fortnight explaining those changes to our operational staff. So it's going to be a big mountain to climb just to get us ready to welcome people back into the space. But it's really important when you're bringing hundreds of people, because it's anti-intuitive to us, this whole COVID-19, because our measure of success is bums on seats, as you said before, and packed houses are what we say is the best result. Well, of course, it's the worst result at the moment. So we need to put back confidence in users of the building that we've done all we can with our staff and the physicality of the place to make it a safe place that allows them to return. But that's going to take quite a bit of thought, investment and training to have our people ready to welcome, and please let it be soon, welcome people back to our business. So
have you had to take external assistance for that, Ray? Because I think there is a level of expertise required. We have got people like John who talk a lot about people's alcohol consumption, for instance, that might have increased over lockdown, getting people back into routines and things like that. So have you had to take external advice in, or have you got a good team there that can put this together?
Oh, none of us are as clever as all of us, so we're always very keen to talk to other people, and there's a number of forums that have been set up for people who are in our sector to be able to chat through similar issues, because we're all dealing with a similar set of circumstances. I think the worst thing for me is what it has done to everybody's outlook. I'm sure everybody out there has high days and very low days. I go from saying, all right, we've cracked that, we move forward, to, oh my giddy aunt, this looks like we're going to go over the edge of a cliff. And I found that hard, and for the leaders out there, having to put on the positive leadership face. We will have better tomorrows. Life will be good. The sun will shine. Don't worry. Yeah, we'll get over that. Both to customers, to staff, stakeholders, to be that positive to the kids, because the kids, it's definitely affected our children in their perception of life. This is a dark time. So sometimes I'm sure people out there feel the same, like, oh, can somebody just take this weight off me back and park it somewhere for a while? So that's what I've found really difficult, because I'm a people person. I just love people. I like to give people a hug when I see them, and not you, obviously, Farah, but pleasant people. And I miss that. I really, really miss that human connection.
I think, is we do miss a lot of things, and even things like, going to the pub, going to restaurants. I know you love to go to restaurants, going to the match, going watching football. And we also love things like the pantomime, for instance, which is a massive, massive community event around Christmas. I mean, we talked about you wearing a dress for 7 weeks of the year, and that's because you played Dame Bella in our pantomimes. And I say ours because it is ours. It's our communities. People are going to be even concerned about things like that, which is the norm for them, things to look forward to. People will be concerned that they're going to have to miss out on these things.
I think Christmas is all about traditions. People do certain things on certain days that, they get together on Christmas Eve and then they do that, or the third Tuesday between Christmas. People do things as families, as larger groups. And certainly our pantomimes sell a year in advance of the pantomime. So people come out of one and book the next. We have got real issues, as the whole industry has. And if you look at that, what's happening across bigger theatres than ours, people are now saying, well, we're not going to do anything until the end of November. And there's a reason it's the end of November, because people are desperate to get the pantomime on. Not least of all because for most theatres, it represents at least 40% of its turnover will be around the panto period. So moreover, for us as an organisation, is that the community see it as their big night out. It's their big celebration of the year, when there's very few forms of theatre where you can bring Nana and the 3-year-old all together, and that you enjoy it as a family, and it hits on different levels. And the thought of that not happening is one I can't bear. I can't bear the thought of it not happening. But the reality is it may have to happen in a different way. It may not be able to have the number of people in it. It may not be able to have the number of audience in it. We simply don't know. And that's a tremendous frustration, isn't it? When you can't affect the business parameters you're working in, when you can't affect change in the environment that you're currently in. And that's so frustrating. You can't just say, well, we'll do it this way, because you're waiting all the time to be told what the rules are and to be instructed what you'll be able to do within those rules. So very, very frustrating times. But I hope the Panto gets on, because it's a cliff edge if it doesn't get on for most theatres.
Cliff edge in terms of cash flow, Ray?
Absolutely. The thing about all pantos is you've got to invest in them substantially before you get the return, like any business, before you get the return at the other end. And there's a little gap there between all of that investment and all of that return. And if we don't get that return, it's the biggest funder. It's bigger than any other funding we get for arts and culture. For those who don't know the Customs House, we're not just a theatre. We work with a lot of over 25,000 young people out in the community, and older people and people from vulnerable communities. But the pantomime puts hundreds of thousands of pounds into that. And if that was to go, our whole raison d'etre would be in doubt as an organisation. It is as serious as that, and I'm not the first one to say that. The whole country's facing huge problems in our sector, but in other sectors as well. I'm not saying we're a special case, but I think we have a good case to say, coming out of this dark time, something that lifts spirits, something that allows us to collectively enjoy, whether it's a football match or whether it's a tennis match or whatever it is, where people can go and be part of, or theatre, then we need that. We really, really need that coming out of this terrible time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the budget for your dresses is going to be increasingly, well, it might actually have to decrease, this year, because I know you're a big fan of changing very often. But you've won awards for all that. Wardrobe.
It was really interesting to 3-4 years ago that we won. There's something called the Great British Panther Awards, which were a virtual thing this year. And we were, for our design and our costumes, we were up against many theatres. There's 250 who enter. And we were down to the last 5. And one of them was the London Palladium. And we won. So it was a massive feather in our cap to do that. And we've been nominated in other categories as well over the years. So for a little theatre to keep its place against these bigger ones is really, really, it's good. It's a nice feeling to succeed in whatever field of business you work in. But this year is going to be a struggle. And I hope this year it happens, because we've got a new designer on board who's just a young, aspiring creative, and the self-employed. And the self-employed have been battered through COVID, absolutely battered. So the young team of creatives that are working on this year's pantomime are desperate that we can continue to fund their contracts to get the show on in December. It's a big part of their careers, their emerging careers. So there's a lot riding on it, and I just hope collectively we'll find a way forward where we're able to do it.
I think it's hard as well, some of the musicians, dancers, ballet, that kind of thing, they would have been right now in some really, fantastic shows in some really prestigious places, and their careers have literally been put on hold.
I think, interestingly, for a place the size of the Customs House, I mean, David Hopper, who is an actor that appears in our pantomime, he would have been playing the West End in September, and that's gone, just gone. That's something you aspire to do, and it's gone. But we will be able to support those people once we get up and running, because unlike the big ones, unlike the West End, and it will take them months to turn it around. It will take them months to turn it around, because they will have to rehearse the whole cast again to get it up to speed. If you're something like Matilda, which involves kids, you're going to have to find those children who are at the right size at that time. Normally it's a conveyor belt. Well, all that stopped. So that's why Cameron McIntosh and Lloyd Webber said no shows will happen till next year, because it'll take them ages to put that all back together. Whereas us, you say tomorrow night, if Boris comes on, as he has a habit of doing, and saying, look, I've changed your mind, open your theatres tomorrow. I could ring Jason Cook, who does fantastic comedy nights at the Customs House, and say, Jason, we can open. And Jason would be there the night after, and we'd have a show on. I could ring Joe McElderry and say, Joe, you've got a gig, come down and sing now. And he would. And we're very lucky that we've got support of people like that. But they need to work and have an audience. They're desperately missing it.
Yeah. I'm more than happy to come down and wear a dress again. So, you mentioned there about the kind of pressure on your shoulders there, Ray, as a leader, and have that kind of mask and that, stiff upper lip and being the supportive and the one that people look to. You've actually, what you just said there is, it's not just the team and employees, it's actually the community, and everybody has that pressure on leaders like yourselves in these establishments. So how do you do that? Do you communicate with the stakeholders and the customers a lot?
Yeah, one of the things I did during lockdown, we have a friends organization, Friends of the Customs House, and we all took a wad of names and rang them. And I spoke to about 55 people, with my section of people to ring and just say how you're doing, what you're doing, anything we can do to help you. And they were really, really pleased and surprised that we'd taken that opportunity to connect in that way. And we continue to send out all of the usual emails, and social media has become so important with getting the message out there. So we try and keep in touch as much as we can with both our customers and creatives, because there's a lot of people look to us for employment. And we've had things for the staff, I'm sure everybody else has, where we've had sort of fun opportunities for the staff to meet and talk. And one of the things we've set up recently is a number of working parties for the staff to be involved in shaping our work practices when we eventually reopen, and so they have a say in and an understanding of how we're going to work, so they're not being told to do something, they're part of shaping that thing. So we're trying on all levels to keep everybody jolly and happy and bouncing along.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people trying to do exactly just that. And I think sometimes wearing a mask is hard, isn't it? You know, do you take it off or just cry in the shower, Ray? Sometimes, you know, when does it creak? Sometimes
I revert to a Spanish philosopher called Rioja, and oops, I've lost you. But he and I spend some time together. I don't know where you've gone to. I don't know if you can still see me. I can't see you.
I can see you, don't worry.
All right. So sometimes we, I'll have a glass of red, and I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody. I'm just saying that sometimes it's the answer for me. It's a very, oh, there you are, you're back. It's a very strange time, and I'm so blessed to live in South Tyneside and to be able to walk our beach or go through the parks. I mean, it's one of the great things has been seeing the squirrels and hearing the birds sing. I'm not rushing somewhere. I'm going out for that walk to just enjoy the time with Trish and the kids and the dog, just to feel a bit of positivity and switch off the rest for a little bit. So we're very lucky to be able to do that. It was fantastic on Sunday. I'm sure that people have had the experience. Our oldest is 26, and she's been absolutely on the line with following the rules. So for 3 months we hadn't seen her. I'm sure this is happening right across the country. Well, we've seen her sort of at the bottom of the garden waving, but I've not held her. And, you know, as I said, I'm a people person. So she arrived on Sunday to come in to the house and be part of our bubble. So Sunday was just lovely. It was lovely. She cried, I cried, her mum cried, the other kids cried. We sat down, we drank wine, and it was like all of this was happening. You know, all of the outside world had gone, and it was about family. And I think that's something else that we've all realized, that our businesses are so important to us, and we put in so much energy into our business. But this has made us, it certainly made me stop and think, what's in this room now is what's really important. So
fantastic. Well said, Ray. Now, before you leave us, we've got 5 minutes or so. Can you remember on my 100th episode at the Customs House, you and I, is it in the Dalton Suite out the back? Is that what you call it?
The Dalton Suite, yeah.
Dalton Suite.
Above the old mortuary.
Yes, indeed. And we did a quick fire quiz about pantomimes.
I remember that.
I've got something else for you.
Oh my Gideon.
Right, here we go. Let me have a look. I've got 3 quizzes you can choose from. Okay. The collected works of Fyodor Dostoevsky, Bagpipers.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I'm going to make
Bagpipers of the 1300s.
Yeah.
Or classic British comedy.
I'm very into Russian literature, so I might make you go with that.
I got that one prepared. I was hoping you'd say classic.
All right, classic British comedy it is. Then.
Right, okay, we'll get rid of that one. Right then, here we go. What cheese does Wallace from Wallace and Gromit particularly like?
Wensleydale?
Oh, nicely done. Who was the British comedian that wrote and starred in Acorn Antiques?
It was, I cried when she died, Victoria Wood.
Well done. What did Tiswas stand for?
Tiswas. Don't know.
Right, someone in the comments has to have a guess at that one. What was the name of the jester in Rent a Ghost?
Jangles.
Jangles the jester?
I don't know.
Come on in the comments if you know. Who played Baldric in Blackadder?
Oh, Tony used to be chairman of Equity. Can't remember. Robinson.
No. Yes, well done. Which carry-on actor starred in the 70s sitcom Bless This House?
Sid James.
Sid James. And does he haunt Sunderland Empire?
Well, he died there. I don't know. It depends on who you ask.
Name the young ones.
Rick Mail. And that one. There's the one that's married to a fab person, whose name I can't remember, and the one that I can't remember them. I could see them in my head. I just can't
see them. Well, shall I tell you one? Everyone, I'll tell you the other ones.
Edmund, yeah.
Nigel Planer.
Yeah.
Christopher Ryan. And the one that everyone forgets, Alexi Sale.
Oh yeah, Alexi Sale.
Who was the lead character in Death Do Us Part? Till Death Do Us Part. The character. West Ham supporter, bald head.
Oh right, yeah. It was, yeah, yeah.
No, Grant's just done.
I've done it. Well done.
Grant, yes. Can you give us an "Are you being served" catchphrase?
I'm free.
Nicely done. And see, if you know this one, I'll be impressed. What is Trigger's real name? Only Fools and Horses.
Do you mean the actor's name or?
No, his real name. So he's not called Trigger.
I worked with the actor.
Did you?
Yeah, on Births, Deaths and Marriages. It was shot in Witten Gilbert. I can't remember. Horse.
He's called Colin Ball.
Colin what?
Colin Ball was his real name in The Only Fools and Horses, and they just called him Trigger. And it wasn't Dave, that was Rodney was called Dave, wasn't it? Right then, Ray, well done. Yeah, I don't know how many you got right. I've never recorded that. Does it really matter? Tell us in the comments if you did well or not. Before you go, you know what I'd love you to leave us with? You know, when Dame Bella sees someone she hasn't saw for a while, what does she say? What's her little catchphrase?
She says, "Hey, where you been? What you been doing? Who you been doing it with?"
I love it. Thanks so much for that, Ray. I love you. I'll see you very soon for a big hug, I hope.
Thank you, everybody. Keep safe, and we'll get through. Bye now.
Take care, Ray. And there he is, my friend Ray Spencer, king of South Tyneside, surely. Right, that's that quiz out the way. Well done. What else have we got? Sponsor us, Spencer. Yeah, thanks for that, Grant. Cheers, Gillian. Let us know if you are here. Let us know if you are watching. Let us know how you found it. We're on to our final section. Thank goodness, because I'm getting hungry. I think I need a coffee as well. Let's see what we've got then. Who should we? Let's bring Polly. Okay, then today we have one of the most positive women I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. Her outlook is inspirational. The founder of Adventurous Coaching and the creator of the Mental Fitness Kit Bag. Welcome to the industry angel, Polly Brennan.
Woo! I'm here. Thank you very much.
Where is here? Where are you?
Downtown New York.
Nice. Good
I've
stuff.
had lots of IT problems today, so I had to run last minute to a friend's house and just try and set myself up last minute. So I'm here.
Don't talk to me about IT problems. I was a few minutes late, and our Gillian was having a panic attack in the green room, waiting for me to return. So
technology is not my friend. I'm developing a new mantra about that, which is like, I am in the process of mastering technology. I'm having to work really hard on that one today.
You look like King Kong climbing the Empire State Building.
Yeah, I'll do that after.
Well, do you know what it is? You probably would, because you are some adventurer, Michael. I love your social media stuff. I'm sure lots of people do. You're always up to something special. You're always up to some beautiful activity, and you inspire us a lot. Sometimes I'll see you and you'll just be on your bike, or you'll be down the beach and be having a little fire, and I'm like, I'm doing that. I'm going to go and do that because Polly does it.
Well, it's really just a reminder to other people that nothing that I do is particularly clever. It's just that I'm doing it, and that we can all get out and have a wee micro adventure, kind of what's going on. So even in the middle of a pandemic, there are adventures to be had, believe it or not. There are. They can be done.
Look at this slapper here.
Hey! Oh, you, stop it. We should be friends. Call me.
Your lighting's wonderful.
But hey, after this, when we're done here, I'm going off up the coast to learn how to surf.
Ah, brilliant. Where are you going?
Amble.
Oh,
I thought
fantastic.
Head north, get a bit closer to home.
Have you done the weather check? How's the swell looking? Is there good pressure?
Well, there's weather, so
there's weather.
As long as there's weather, it's all good.
Good. I've spent many a year in the North Sea, I tell you.
Oh.
Right then, so talking about your social media then, what I loved was a special relationship that you've had on social media with a friend of yours. And
absolutely,
it was really inspiring to see you two sharing adventures and sharing the methods and the coaching that you give people, Polly. So we're going to bring your friend in shortly, but before we do that, do you want to give us a little bit of a heads up about what kind of things that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I help people to create a kit bag for life, really. So it's about your mental fitness, because I think we think about packing our gym bag, or we think about how we pack to go to a class and we work out, but actually our mental health really is all about having the right kit as well. And this is all about overcoming the challenges of being human and finding solutions to obstacles that we're faced with in life, and finding ways to overcome roadblocks and to become even more resilient, and to bounce back and to feel stronger in our lives and in our businesses, because this just really boosts our potential for happiness and success. And I believe that we all have mental health. We all have the potential to be really, really well and not so well, and that we can learn the skills and tools that we might need, and that we already have skills and tools. So sometimes people think mental health is a special thing that they don't know about, but we're all managing our mental health every day. But it's also possible to be glasses half full and top up. So what I really want is to help people continue to evolve and build, I suppose, mental wealth, really. Mental wealth. And the things we do every day accumulate like money in the bank towards our wealth. And I think it's really, really important that we all pay attention to that and think about how we can have more, be more and do more. So John and I have done quite a lot of outdoors adventuring, and they've been training. I guess it's been training for some of the big challenges that he's done, and he'll tell you more about that. But we got outdoors and trained together, and whilst we've been strengthening our muscles and John's been getting ready for big events, we've been thinking about his mental fitness muscles too, and thinking about how he's going to have, I guess, the mindset to take him forward, and have the opportunity to rally a good, strong team to help him with all the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows. and just really feeling ready for action. And I guess these are probably all things that have been talked about today, and how they're really important, and they translate to anything from an adventure or a challenge to everyday life, and especially to the world of being in business. So yeah, I guess that's just a wee bit about what I do.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's a great place to bring John in then. So I'll give him a bit of an intro. I'll give him a bit of a special intro. So a military veteran, ex-forces PTI and field gunner, who was on HMS Coventry 38 years ago when she was bombed and sank in 20 minutes. An advocate for mental health and fundraiser. Welcome to the industry angel, John Mew. Hi, John.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine, my friend.
Good.
Nice of you to
Well,
join us. Look at this
I got
lovely
in
little
all right.
setup. You got in all right. We'll let you in.
Yeah, I was fine. It was just because I got PTSD. When I'm totally out of my box, I really struggle with the most basic things.
Right. Okay.
So I got in though. So
We've just been talking about that, John. We've just been saying how technology can be quite stressful, but we did it. We're here.
Yeah.
We're
So
here.
I got on all right. So I'm quite pleased.
Well, I'm really pleased to hear, John. It's an honor to have you, my friend. And as I say, I've watched with actual inspiration the two of you getting up to mischief and getting up to your adventures.
Oh.
So
I wouldn't say it was mischief. It was hard work.
Yes, you're right. Actually, in terms of that hard work, John, would you mind telling us a few of the challenges that you've set yourself and how hard they were?
Well, the first challenge actually was I had a bit of a flashback a few years ago, and I actually sat down a couple of days later on a park bench and I did my story. I just talked about the whole thing, why, said I had PTSD, went through it all, and I think within 3 days I had about 74,000 hits. And that was just one 10-minute video I put on Facebook. But actual challenges, a couple of years ago, I did the SAS selection route over Penny Fan with £25 on my back. I did that in, I think it was 5 hours 40. So I was really chuffed with that. And the help I got was obviously through Polly, Ford Assist, the Veterans Charity up here in Dudley, Newcastle Falcons Foundation, where I did a lot of my training because I was just going up and down the West Stand, which was so boring. But I actually become friends with quite a lot of the Falcons players. So it was really, it was really good. They'd actually come up and down the steps with me on occasions just to keep me company. So that was good. The following year, I did that challenge for SAFA and Ford Assist, the Veterans Charity, was what I think was about £6,500 I raised for that one.
Well done. Don't you have to go around the route and then come back round, John? Is that what you do?
Yeah, you actually start at the
phone box,
the famous red phone box. The first 2.5 mile is just constantly uphill. You get the top of Penny Fan, and then you look down the other side, and you've got Jacob's Ladder. I don't know if it's true or not, but I sort of heard that the reason it's called Jacob's Ladder is because you can actually put a ladder on it and climb the ladder. That's how steep it is.
Wow.
But I mean, that was 2.5 miles to the top, and then you've got to go 7 miles is halfway, so it's all downhill. That wasn't too bad, but you've then got to come back and do Jacob's Ladder. And to be honest, at the end of it, I was crippled. I think I finished it. I sat in the back of a car, took my boots off, and within 10 minutes I couldn't walk. So I had to be helped, back to I can't remember the place, but anyway, where the digs were. I was absolutely wasted. The following year,
was going to say, I think in terms of mental strength, John, do they try and break you by telling you to go back round the route again that you've just come down? Is that a bit of a?
Well, I mean, it's the SES test route. You know, people do people do it. If they can do it, they will then be thought of and may be selected for the challenge. If they can't do it, they don't even get the choice. You know, so they don't. But it is mental. But I think for me, because I'd done so much for it, and I had so many people behind me, I just had to put one foot in front of the other, and I could not give up. I just could not. And yes, that's mental strength, but when it comes to fitness stuff, I'm always like that. I've always got that, you know, I'm not going to give up here. And that happened in the next challenge, where I was Adrian's Wall, the 86 miles west to east, the same burden on my back. And I did it with somebody called Darren Grego from Newcastle Falcons Foundation, because the two charities were Ford Assist again and the Falcons Foundation. So Darren said he would do it with me, 86 miles. We split it up. We had Ford Assist. They were like our backup team. So they always had the vans, tea, coffee, etc. for us at the water stops. So the first day, I think we were going to do 28 miles, but it absolutely poured down for the whole day. We were absolutely drenched. Some of the sand banks on the river over Carlisle, I can't remember what it's called. You couldn't go along, so we had detoured. So some of our water stops weren't there. I couldn't use my phone because I couldn't get it out of a plastic bag, so I couldn't phone them up and tell them. And when we did manage to do that, our hands were so wet it wouldn't recognise your phone, so we were totally snookered. So we were absolutely drenched. We got 3/4 along that first day, and Darren and I will always laugh about this one. We got lost, and he called it Indiana Jones territory, because it was just like Indiana Jones, vines everywhere. We had to climb up the banks to get out and slide down because it was so wet and muddy. But we did it. We had the digs that night. Our boots were soaking wet. Luckily enough, the person who had us there, they actually stuffed our boots with paper so that they would dry the next morning, because if they weren't, it was a nightmare. And even Darren said he didn't think that we would make it after the whole thing was over, but we did. Second day wasn't too bad because it wasn't raining, but I must admit I had trench foot after day one, so I was walking on needles for the next 2 days. We stayed at the director of rugby at Newcastle Falcons on the Saturday night, and he volunteered to look after us, Dean Richards. That was awesome. It was really good, and he joined in some of the routes, not all of them, obviously, because he's got injuries as well. And the last day, I had a couple of friends from home join in. I had Melanie McGee again from the foundation. She joined in, and we basically finished it. And we did the 86 miles. Darren worked it out. It was actually the 86 miles in 31 hours.
Excellent stuff.
But I did have blisters, and I couldn't wear shoes for a couple of days. It was all just socks and slippers. Later on that year, or last year, because I raised that money for SAFA, I got an invite onto the STS Lord Nelson, which is tall ships. She's been mothballed now, unfortunately, but it was to celebrate the 75 years of Normandy landing. I think it was September we did it, but we actually, you got to laugh at this one. we actually got out into the, we left from the Thames under the main bridge, got into the channel, and have a guess what we hit. Come on, have a guess.
Storm or something?
Gale Force 10.
Right.
Gale Force 10. And we were basically like that. We didn't go anywhere. And we had to, that night, we had to come into, the following night, we had to come into between the Isle of Wight and Portsmouth.
Right.
Following morning, we set off, got nowhere, Gale Force 10. And basically, we just turned around and come back. But the weather was horrendous. I actually didn't mind it because being an ex-Navy guy, I think I was the only one who wasn't seasick. I didn't take any tablets. I just wasn't seasick. I did, though, manage to get to the top of the main mast, the bird mast, climbing up the rigging. So that was my goal. So I was really, really chuffed with that.
You've got a fabulous video, John, as well, haven't you, of you climbing the mast and saluting and doing your thing?
There was two of us. He was an ex-button boy years ago, HMS, I can't remember. Anyway, we actually climbed it, one either side, step by step, tried to, in unison, all the way to the top. And then we just turned outwards, got a bollocking because we were supposed to have 3 points of contact all the time. And we both saluted, one forward, one after. And it went down really well. So that's it.
Brilliant, John. Thanks for sharing.
Two challenges.
We've got some comments coming in, and this is a friend of mine, Simon. We did the coast to coast last year, and it was a breeze. It was a breeze compared to what you've done. And we've got a friend of mine, Graham, an ex-para there, can kind of relate to struggles with PTSD and mental illness. And in terms of that managing your mental health, you put yourself under more struggling in tight and conditions such as the challenges you've set yourself, John, and I can't understand why is it a way of healing, helping?
I think for me, I have to have little targets.
Okay.
Little targets all the time, with a goal at the end. The biggest one I can really say is when I was diagnosed. I was after I'd been at Hollybush House in Scotland and done my therapy, I was asked by our local rugby club, because I'd been there for years, my kids were there, they saw me deteriorate right down. Once I'd done the therapy, Tom Bramall and John Chappell, they're the big boys at the club, they actually asked my wife, Christine, do you think John would like to help us backstage? But they were too frightened to ask him because it was like being a water boy. And because I was a physical training instructor, I might have said no. However, she said yes. I've been involved there now for 2 years, right? And I do everything behind the scenes. Sometimes it's on my own, but I really do enjoy it because I think it's because it's sport. Everybody who's doing it wants to do it, so they're all positive. So for me, I have to be around positive people all the time. So I get a lot of satisfaction there, and it's the same with the Veterans Charity Forward Assist. Paula and Tony there, I can go there anytime. I can have a chat, have a cup of coffee, and it's always really positive. And then the same goes the Falcons Foundation, sport again. If I'm feeling down, I can go there, have a cup of coffee. I can talk to the players if they're free. I get a lot of respect, and that gives me the things to move forward. In a way, it's if I'm around negative people, I will go down very, very quickly. Yeah. I'll start to isolate myself. But I've learned through Poly Forward Assist to see these triggers, so I know it's happening, so I know what I've got to do, if that makes sense.
You've learned to take your challenges and turn them into opportunities. which is a really massive thing to do. And I guess what you're talking about, John, is about the power, understanding the power of a team. Really massive shout out to Forward Assist. They're really small but mighty, a really unique veterans charity in the Northeast. And as you mentioned, the Falcons Foundation have been incredible. But I guess what you're talking about is you've chosen the right people around you to support you and scaffold you and top you up. And that's been really important. And I guess that's what we all need to do, isn't it? It's find the right people around us.
I think during the lockdown, it's been interesting because at the start of the lockdown, I got involved with some ex-Navy lads that I know, and they put basically a challenge out, and it was a 7-day challenge, 7 workouts, 7 days, and it was going on Twitter. It was being put around, and they were doing it to raise money for the NHS. I really enjoyed it, but I was with positive people speaking all the time. And then another one was I'm halfway through with Polly. 25 press-ups a day for 25 days, and it's for mental health awareness and suicide awareness. So I do that every day. So I look forward to doing that. But the people I nominate, they put it on my site so I can see them. So there's a lot of sort of banter going around. It's always positive. It's really good. So
I've never saw anybody do a press up so strictly and impressively as you, John.
I know.
And obviously your next PTI.
No, well, I am 63, mine, so give me a break.
Fittest 63-year-old I know, John Mew. Can I just mention something about when John and I started working together? One of the things we did was almost like a skills infantry of John's capabilities from the past when he was in the forces. And we looked at all the kind of things that had been really important to him, like, for you, having a visibility, being in a position of sort of training and supporting other people, the physical health thing, and being a go-to guy for other people. And I guess what we did was we worked out how to pull all those competencies together and to create a way forward for the future. And I guess that's why right here, right now, you're someone that you do big challenges to raise funds. You speak about mental health because your mental health challenges have really affected you, and you want other people to learn from what you've been through. And I guess this sort of that public persona, using your voice, using your challenges and your experiences to help other people become such an important thing. And that's why you're such an awesome person, because you're out there doing that and inspiring us all.
Thank you.
So
nice words.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well, see, there's not much long left, so I think I mentioned to you before, Ian, about reading a poem out. If I could do that.
I tell you what it is, John. Let's leave that at the end, because you said we haven't got long left. We've got as long as we want, because we're the end.
Because you're the boss.
Actually, my iPad's I keep watching the battery because it's going down, but I'm on 66%, so you can have a little while.
Well, don't you worry about it, because I want to know about some of the kind of tough challenges that you've done, John. Like, what is the toughest thing that you look back on that you have achieved or been through?
The toughest thing I would say the sinking of the Coventry. Okay. But that was, I don't really want to sort of talk too much about that one, obviously, because it brings back some bad memories. The toughest things I've been through, to be honest, the first one you have to say is the field gun at Earls Court. When I ran for Portsmouth field gun in 78 and 84 at Earls Court in the Royal Tournament. I mean, that was it's just so hard. It's so fit. The gun's so heavy, and you train and train and train. But it's the feeling when it's all over. I mean, the gun barrel weighs 900 weight alone. The carriage is, I think, 350 pounds. So you're talking about throwing a ton and a half of gear over a wall in sort of 2 minutes 40 seconds. Well, sorry, 2 walls and a chasm in 2 minutes 40 seconds. But that is one of the big things that I remember. Penny Fan at the age of 62, that's another one. I mean, to me, that is pretty awesome. But then if I look at Adrian's wall, that's totally different again, because that was over 3 days, you know. And I think the mindset for that one was after day one, you know, it's like, you can't give this up now, knowing I had just about had trench foot. Darren felt exactly the same, but he wouldn't say a word. We just heads down and got on and did it. So they're all hard things that I will remember for a long time. But there's other things as well in a way, but it's not so much physically. When I was at Ford Assist, I really struggled to talk. I think it took ages for me and Polly to actually get talking properly.
Yeah.
But Ford Assist sent me to, I think it was Newcastle University, to do a debating society just for the veterans. And that really helped me. That helped me a lot. And we ended up going to Parliament and had Ford Assist did a presentation in Parliament, and my actual poem was read out and was requested by, I think it was by the Secretary of State. I don't know what happened to it, but I don't know. So that you know, that was another one. If I go back to STS Lord Nelson, that was totally different again. I mean, that was me going back to sea. There were certain things I was absolutely petrified about. Not so much the Gale Force 10, because I've been through worse, but it was a small ship. However, on the day we got there, we had to go through tests, and I had like a team leader. She was a nurse, and she sat next to me because she knew they were going to set fire alarms off.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say I freaked out, but I was shaking like a leaf. And then if you take, when you say the fire alarms going off, I mentioned earlier about, I did that 9-minute video about my life, which I got all those hits from. That was because I was at Ponteland Rugby Club, where I feel so at home with. It's fine, but the fire alarms went off. I lost it. So, you know, the fire alarms is another key thing. I'm trying to think of what else. I think some of the problems I do have, it's just the day-to-day living of the stressful things that go on. If I've got a set routine, I'm okay. But if things change drastically or quickly, and I've got to rechange everything, I get all flustered.
So it's interesting, John. Your training's prepared you for the biggest challenges, but sometimes the biggest challenges are everyday life things, aren't they?
It's just I don't know, you know. I mean, but at least I will say, at least I know. I can see the signs. I know what's going on, and I know what to do to rectify it. At the minute, it's my 25 push-ups a day. So if I've had a bad morning, I know, right, I'm going to just go out, do my 25, and it gives me a bit of a buzz, bit of a kick up. And obviously it goes on Facebook, and then the comments I get back from some of the other PTIs, other people that are doing it, it's good banter. So that can bring me back onto the high again to get out of it. But
John, who inspires you, John? Maybe in the past or maybe now, who do you see out there and that you look up to and you get strength from?
I can't really answer that one. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I joined the Navy, and there was loads of people, one particular one. It's just everybody you're around is positive, especially in the PT branch. You're probably the biggest extroverts under the sun, with what you've got to do. But obviously, with the sinking of the country, I went downhill rapidly. So, and I think because when I left the Navy, I went commercial diving for a while, and that was very much similar to the Navy, because back then most people were ex-military. You'd work away for 6, 7, 8 weeks, sometimes 3 months. I would come home. My wife was at home. I would be on leave for 4 weeks, and I'd go back to work, 12-hour shifts, 90 days, and it just carries on constantly. So I think more the people who have inspired me in a way, I would think, are the people around me now have brought me back from what I was to what I am today. A lot. I mean, I've still got a long way to go, because I still have issues and problems, and but at least I know I can phone up Polly up, I can phone up Paula at Forward Assist, I can go to the Falcons, I can just sit there and have a coffee and they'll come up to me, so they are it's sort of like my team.
Thanks, John. Thank you so much for sharing that. How about you do some more sharing, and we hear about this famous poem of yours?
Yeah, right. When I was up at Hollybush House doing my trauma work, you do all sorts of different sort of classes on top of the trauma work. You do art, all sorts, and it's just to try and get you to express yourself and to bring yourself out. So anyway, I wrote this poem. Here we go. It's I love you through my anger, in between my fits of rage. I want us to be happy, but I struggle to turn the page. I see you're the answer to everything I prayed. I then get mad and leave the room. I wish I had stayed. My love just wants to hold your hand, but my anger doesn't care. I feel the weight you carry. It isn't really fair. I gave my country everything the day I went to war. Thought the cost would be my life, but it turned out to be more. I look into my children's eyes. It isn't really fair. I'm in my own dark world. They think I do not care. I found the help after 30 years. Hollybush House, thank you. You're the one who care. Christine, Francesca, Elliot, and Larry too. Your husband and dad loves you so true.
Fantastic.
Wow.
John. Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, I can see that is from the heart, my friend. And I think the whole reason they may have asked or suggested you wrote such words was in a poem was to express and to get those thoughts out of your heart and your mind.
I've never been the best writer, as it were. It's always been physical stuff, but it was just when you were up there, we were doing all sorts of stuff, and you had plenty of time to think about things and sort things out. And I just said, I'm going to do it. And I wrote it and I showed it to the staff at Hollybush House, and they thought it was amazing. So I put it on Facebook.
Fantastic.
And that's it. And it's gone everywhere, but I don't know where.
Brilliant. John, before we wrap this whole day up, is there anything that I haven't asked you, or is there anything else you would like to share with the viewers?
No, not really. Just it's the biggest thing about the whole thing is having a positive team around you, people that you can support, talk to, and you can get help from as and when needed. But it's keep away from people who are negative, because for me it just totally knocks me back. And once I start going downhill, it's very hard to come back. So that's it, really.
Thanks, John. Thanks for your open and honest approach. Polly, come on, over to you before we go.
Well, we've been talking about John and all the sort of strategies that he finds really helpful. And when John and I have been talking about packing his mental fitness kit bag, and I guess some of the things that we'd learned really apply to all of us, and especially we're talking about business and thriving and getting out there again. So I suppose if I just could share one or two things that we talked a lot about when we've been coaching. We talked a lot about the power of sort of self-care, whatever that means to you. It's something very personal and unique to each of us, because I guess what that's about is being really energized and really topped up and ready for anything. John and I have talked a lot about taking control and taking action, and maybe some of these things have already been talked about this morning. But again, that's about sort of knowing what you can control and taking control of what's within your power and accepting what you can't. And I think John's got himself really clear on what is in his power to control. And we've learned a lot about how he's taken action, to really thrive and have a really impactful life. John, you talked a lot about your mindset and really having to dig deep at times and really choose a mindset that's going to drive you forward, and using those adrenaline spikes to take you forward, not hold you back. Because I guess that's something that we all need in our lives, don't we? We need to find solutions, and we need to see our challenges as opportunities. And when you shift your mindset on that, anything's possible, really. We talked about we try and work really hard on celebrating the successes that happen along the way, because on some days a really small success is really significant. On the tough days, a small win is really, really significant. And I guess some days all we can do is just go only as slow as the slowest part of us feels safe to go, and that's enough. And managing expectations. And so we have to really celebrate all the small and big wins that happen around us every day. Rallying our team, you talked a lot about the importance of your clan, having the right people around you that you can touch base with. So important. And again, I guess in business, that's really important too, isn't it? We know who's around us that's going to help us, and we know who to go to for scaffolding and cheerleading and all that sort of stuff. And finally, I suppose it's about all of that helps us fire on all cylinders, doesn't it? Because we need to kick the ass out of life. Somebody told me recently that we're here for a good time, not for a long time. So taking that on board, as well as being really impactful in our business or in our lives, we also have to focus on how we can be out of office thrivers. So I think that's a good note to finish on, isn't it?
It is. Thanks so much for summarising that, Polly. That was a great little summary there. So, okay, then we'll let you two go. John, again, thanks so much for your open, honest transparency, and thank you for your service, my friend.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks for having us, Ian. We'll be back for more.
You'll be back for more. This is the second time you've joined us, Paul.
No, but if you invite me again, I'll think about it.
You go and have a good time, sister.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Have a brilliant Friday.
Well, there you go. Wow, what a morning. Let's have a look at some of these comments. There's one from Gillian there, made her cry. Well, we've laughed, we've cried, we've talked about some very important topics again. And as usual, we've gone through a roller coaster of emotions, but that's what this is all about. Hearing from different people from different walks of life with really very diverse views and lifestyles and businesses and job roles. There's nothing better for me. There's nothing better. And, I think there's been a lot of love for John there. Thanks so much, Graham, for joining us today. Alexandra, great. Thanks for being here. It's lovely for your support. I know this has been going live. Of course, these videos stay online on their respective channels forever, evergreen content, so you can go back and watch some. You can go and share them with friends or family, colleagues, whatever you want to do. So the question to you is, shall we do this again? Because this was the third one. And I think I've kind of hit my sweet spot a little bit in terms of timing. This feels okay now. I'm a little bit hungry, but I feel like I'm all right. We did have a few tech issues this morning, but this is what it's about. We're learning. I think Gillian said earlier on that she's now the Zoom queen, because we're all learning these different new technologies, different ways of working. We're all adapting really well. So thank you so much for joining us again. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, it was. There's the most important woman in the world. There's my mother. Yes, John's poem was awesome. Okay, then, well, it looks like we might have to do this again, might we? So, thanks so much for joining us. Continue to stay safe, my friends. Continue to keep your mental kit bag full. Have your adventures. You know, don't get too overwhelmed with this whole situation. Hopefully, we will get back to business together. Okay, much love. I'll see you all very